Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Progressive World. I hope you're having a decent day. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam. So we have a very nice and packed episode today, which includes a bonus video about the recent geopolitical developments in Afghanistan. So that'll be towards the end of this video. But of course, we'll have our usual country briefs and progressive research review, where we look at a few academic studies. But here's just a slightly more detailed, but still quick rundown of this week's The Progressive World. So, of course, it wouldn't be a proper Progressive World episode if we didn't touch on Anna Kasparian's latest pathetic attack on Glenn Greenwald. We'll also have some fun by going through a Rate My Professors page. But then we also have some more relatively substantial content, including why Russia is interested in Syria, as well as different arguments surrounding the role of race and socioeconomic backgrounds in America as it relates to African Americans. Finally, we also have some news from India and its plans to become a global hub for green energy. So Sam, that's just a quick rundown, and people will include timestamps below so you can easily jump to your favorite segments. And of course, please like and subscribe and leave all your comments, questions, criticisms below, and we'll make sure to get to them. But yes, Sam, all good. Should we start with the US? With the US brief, the more fun part? So
yeah,
the US
let's
brief.
start with it. Well, US brief.
It has two parts. Yeah. Well, the first part is with Anna Kasparian. The second part is concerning, the different debates that you hear right now, especially on Bad Faith podcast and even on the Jacobin, about socioeconomic differences and the situation of African Americans. But okay, so Sam, I'm sure a lot of our viewers have also seen this video. Anna Kasparian was joined by another host this time. They just keep on rotating. I believe his name is Lance from The Surf. So he was joined for a video that they did about Glenn Greenwald and Tulsi Gabbard announcing that they'll be moving to the video sharing platform Rumble. But go ahead. You already have a comment before I get into my main points.
Yeah, it's just somebody long time ago made this Twitter joke that I can't prove this, but it does seem like TYT is running a human trafficking ring out of their offices. And it's just the number of people that come and go at revolving door is like every time I turn it on, it's just new people that no, he was great. We'll get into it, but yeah, he wasn't even. I liked his take, so yeah.
100%, 100%.
Just I'm worried about him that his organs may be harvested. Anyways, I don't want to insinuate anything.
Yeah. No, it kind of reminded me of the person who now has his own show on TYT, and he was joined on that other pathetic video that they did about the Syrian democracy, about Syria's election. And it's like that guy hadn't got the memo either that this is like a video to hate on, Glenn Greenwald or Aaron Mack. Well, we'll get into that.
No, don't be positive on them. Yeah. But so I think it's good to give a context that, Glenn Greenwald, Tulsi Gabbard, among other major figures, they decided to join Rumble, which is a Canadian-based platform that claims to be pro free speech and is trying to market itself as an alternative to YouTube that does not censor creators. And then Anna Kasparian, like, you can have different takes on that because they did sign a contract with Rumble. Apparently they are getting money and all that, so there can be analysis of that, but this was just I think you can explain what it is.
Yeah, I mean, she rambles on. Every time I try to make a video about her, I'm like, especially videos like this, I have a hard time of finding out what is like her overall message so I can critique it and criticize it properly. So I tried my best to mention the most substantial part. I mean, the part that bothered me the most is really that she completely within the first minute, she completely undermined the censorship that can happen on social media platforms, as if it never happens. It's always the most accurate thing. So that was like my first one. I mean, she just completely undermines it and makes a mockery of online censorship by social media platforms. That is perhaps the most substantial thing I can say about her video. Go ahead.
To be fair to her, I think she was doing it, to be honest, in a disingenuous manner, but I think she was picking out Tulsi Gabbard and Glenn Greenwald and saying these two people specifically have not experienced censorship. And Glenn Greenwald, I think in a response video or in another video anyway, he says they never claim they are being censored because they are relatively like big enough to be, hard to censor really. But a lot of other smaller creators are being censored and they are trying to support them. So she does her, like, she lies by omission in a way. Like she makes her argument through omission and through focusing on a very narrow thing. But besides that, she does come across as very pro monopoly, like, oh, this right-wing platform. Again, I haven't analyzed Rumble's content. I don't know the owners. Apparently there have Peter Thiel, JD Vance, right-wing. There have been right-wing investors. I don't know if they were silent. I don't know, not. But it's not like anything that she delves into either. She's just like does the whole smearing, like this is a right-wing thing, and she quotes this I mean, she's not as bad. Washington Post and New York Times are far worse than, I think, Washington Post, if I'm not mistaken, does an article where Glenn takes apart, where their expert is somebody who's funded by government and Google, who owns YouTube. So it's just, this like could have been a substantial video perhaps or something, but this is just clearly a narrow smear attack and just the personal sort of getting back at people. Like she thought, I think in her mind, she thinks she found a got you moment that, oh, you guys say we got money from Katzenberg, we're flawed. You guys say you're censored, but while completely ignoring the actual issue, which is general censorship, self-censorship, which is going on right now a lot. It's sort of hearkening back to 1980s. People are sort of afraid to talk,
Yeah, no, spot on. I mean, I can just, one example I know for sure is the Analysis News. They had some of their videos taken down about January 6th. And I mean, you go watch the Analysis News. I mean, anyone can accidentally spread misinformation, but they pretty much bring high-level academics and have very in-depth conversations. And then, you mentioned, go ahead.
Sorry, The Hill had a debate on this issue of freedom of speech. It had more to do with Taliban and their presence on Twitter. But yeah, there was this lady who made the point that, I don't know, but there should be authorities about misinformation. I mean, look, anybody who does like basic social sciences, like it's just like somebody's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist. Someone's misinformation is another person's, people trust different sources, and you can't, what you gonna do then? Like,
and in the sciences, I feel like she doesn't understand the sciences in a way, especially the social sciences. Sometimes there is a relative consensus, like the literature will lean towards a certain side. There's more evidence, more studies, but it's extremely their debates, it's fluid. And I mean, just look at some of the stuff we experienced over the past year about mask this or mask now. Things change. I mean, and then I was going to make a comment about alternative media, which you mentioned before, but go ahead, I'll come back to that.
No, I just want to add that even not social sciences, real sciences, I mean, anybody read Thomas Kuhn's, I mean, he walks back some of his things, or philosopher Feyerabender, if I'm not mispronouncing his name. I mean, this myth of like real science and real objective facts. I'm not, by the way, just undermining reality. I'm not one of those, man, we live in a dream of a turtle or something. But but it's just science is guesswork. It's like detective guesswork. It's not like you don't have facts. You're half blind in a room just doing this. That's what science is.
I mean,
sorry, no, just I just wanted to suggest people reading Thomas Kuhn, and like I think he's one of the writers. His writing had a lot of influence on me. So anyway.
I was gonna say even the natural sciences, sometimes I guess like in chemistry or physics or something, they put 2 or 3 things together and it always creates the same end conclusion. But after a while, they can realize, oh, there was like a fourth thing that we didn't know about. So we did all reach the same results all the time, but the explanation was actually something completely different, which we didn't know. But I mean, in the social sciences, they try to say like, oh, if you're a democracy, you will have this or that, and you can prove it in two cases, maybe in like a particular context, and that's good. That's as good as you can, but it can't apply to everything. So yeah, and then
I mean,
yeah,
I would still push back on your natural sciences point, because I would say even that's not like Newtonian laws were basically completely not made redundant. They're still used on for a lot of things, but like Einstein's theory basically completely undermined all that. Or for a long time in natural sciences, ether was considered like material, but then we came up with the idea of vacuum. So again, it's just
no,
just
that's
wanted
what I
to.
meant. No, that's kind of what I meant. Although they can be a very strong consensus and everybody reaches the
Oh
same
yeah,
results, there was actually another thing that nobody knew about that was still making everybody reach the same result. Then that was kind of my third point. I'm going to move it to second now, which was the way she talks about these alternative social media platforms is also, again, very demeaning, and as if they're all like these blah, 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 like whatever. There's so people going alternative platforms. It kind of reminded me of back then, you would see it more like on CNN or mainstream media. They would talk about YouTube as if it's all bullshit and stuff. I just got the exact same feeling from the way that she was talking about alternative social media platforms, just completely like undermining them. So I don't know if
I
you
mean,
have, yeah,
again, this is not a new thing though. From what I recalled, when Parler got banned by major tech companies, the Young Turks, as far as I remember, they didn't have a major problem with that. But yeah, I sadly I think these people are so what do you say? They're so disturbed by their own personal dramas that they
yeah.
just I don't even think she's like she's not being paid by a tech giant or like she's being manipulating or evil. It's just she wants to get back at some people. So yeah.
No, I wouldn't want to be Anna these days. I feel like she's not having, like at home, all these things must be eating her up, like all these like conflict, and she's always on the losing side. I just feel like definitely not having a good time. And TYT, it's funny, they're actually on a bunch of platforms all the time. So I can see them later on eating their words. Like Jenk might have been like, we might have to join Rumble in 6 months. I wish you hadn't said that, Anna, because I went on Rumbles. There's Reuters now and there. So, there's a chance that we're...
like a lot of people who come under Zaid Jelani in Esquire, like, again, I'm not saying I haven't done a content analysis or read about them, but just to be so like clearly, personal about everything, just try to give a unbiased take as an anchor. Maybe after a while, people just forget about who gives a shit about drama anyway. So
no, people can move on. Here, let me see if you
bringing
can
it back.
I know. But here, let me know if you can push back a little bit on this. I have yet to, she keeps on saying Glenn has completely changed. He's done a 180. He's no longer the same person. In this video, she doesn't mention one issue. And I'm sure Glenn has changed his mind. We all change our minds on different things. But have you heard her or TYT actually point out specific issues? And it can't be that left and right have some common grounds now, because as we discussed in last week's episode of Progressive World, Jen put out a tweet saying the same thing, that now that the left and the right have more common ground that they believe when it comes to economic issues, so they should work together. But in this one, she doesn't even bring one example of what she... Sorry about that, folks. There might be a few internet issues in this video. I'm really sorry. We're going to cut them as smoothly as possible. But yeah, I was just telling Sam, can you think of an example? And it can't be the one that, that left and right have more common grounds now, because on economic issues, because Cenk himself also just put out a tweet like last week saying that, pretty much giving Glenn Greenwald's argument that based on economic issues, the left and right have more similarities and they should work together. But yeah, have you heard about one issue that Anna said, A, Glenn did a complete 180 on this, and B, this is why his new opinion is bad? I'm sure there are some. I haven't heard one, but I'm sure there are some.
I haven't. I don't know specifically what she was referring to or anything like that. I know Glenn kind of. I've had that view actually. I believe I may be wrong here. I may be mixing him up with Matt Taibbi or somebody, but I think he's, for example, for a long time he's been he's not for campaign finance reform. So he's had some controversial views for the left, like controversial for the left, and he's never fit in that box perfectly well. I think what if we are being charitable, she may be referring to his interviews with Megyn Kelly or Glenn Beck. I haven't seen it, but apparently he did a relatively softball interview with Glenn Beck. So I don't know, but again, yeah, it's just people should be judged, I think, based on their actions, and this sort of reading into tea leaves to find out what are people's intentions and their mental, what is their psychotic state of their mind and all that. I think this is all, again, bullshit. So yeah, I hope if there is such a 180 thing, if Glenn has done things like that and all of us are ignorant about it, I hope they shine light to it, not just, that's, again, it just reminds me of the whole, he's paid by the Russians.
Yeah.
What Cenk said, I know everything. It's anything online. Yeah, referencing is very underrated, I think.
Yeah, I know. So I have a few more points that we'll get into, including the co-host. Maybe have a few decent things to mention about him. But before that, just because I know I'm going to name this video pathetic, so I wanted to bring it up. That is pathetic and salty.
SEO helps, but
and I love how she mentions herself that she's salty towards Tulsi Gabbard because she refused to do an interview with her. So Anna, towards the end of the video, she's like, yeah, and it might be a bit salty. Yeah, she uses the word salty. I'm 99% sure. Hopefully I'll have a clip of it right here.
And yes, do I seem a little salty? I do, because Glenn Greenwald in particular is someone who I had a tremendous amount of admiration for. Glenn Greenwald was the journalist that I held up on a pedestal in every single one of my journalism classes, someone who I felt was a model for real journalism. And now he has devolved into, I don't know what he is. I mean, a Twitter bully schoolgirl who's constantly whining and crying about Taylor Lorenz and Emma Vigeland. Like, what is wrong with you? So, I mean, that's why I'm salty about it.
If not my bad, 99% sure, because she refused to do an interview with her. And well, just overall, every time, sorry, just one last thing. Every time her and Cenk make these videos, I feel like they're like lecturing me and trying to, make me feel bad and guilt trip me into their position. I get that from both of them whenever they make these videos.
Yeah, it's really funny. I don't know who they think they are. Like they think they're like internet's dad and like cool auntie or something, like cool uncle and cool auntie of internet.
Very well put.
If you feel like you agree with the people who mock women, go ahead. Like this. Like shaming us, like you are nobody to us. Like we don't. You were the ones who were showing personal pictures of people, of their personal parts, illegal, something that I still cannot believe was not illegal at the time. And you are it's like Bill Cosby and pulling your pants up crowd, with him. Like you pull up your pants, you rapist son of a bitch. Anyway, but it's just it's so annoying. But I just wanted to make a point that the person she brought on again wasn't in the game, that you're supposed to be just trashing these people. And I think he made a really genuinely substantive point that sadly the left seems to be very timid in adopting new technologies compared to like right-wing people. I don't know, maybe because leftists just generally wants to move as a community or something. But yeah, like that. So it's not that Rumble. I don't know, but I assume Rumble is not necessarily right wing. But if there is more right wing content there, or more what is described as conspiracy minded content there, it's probably because those people flood, while academically minded leftists tend to want to stay in their academic circles.
Yeah, and some of them, sure. I mean, their platforms must have been, their accounts must have been taken down. So they kind of had no choice to go, but to,
Sure.
they weren't able to make videos on YouTube. But yeah, I wanted to add to what he said. So if this platform, right, is filled with more right-wing people, shouldn't someone from the left, like Anna, actually encourage and want like leftists and maybe someone like even TYT, they see themselves as progressives, to go on that platform and in fact to counter that, to put out your narrative, to put out your side of the story?
No, man. You shouldn't debate and have a lively discussion, a polite discussion with people you disagree. You should be all zen about it and just stick to your friends and stay in your own circle and just agree. And yeah, you agree with me, I agree with you. Yeah. It's great. It's great. Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, I like, yeah, that's how you should live your life. You should not try to change your mind at all.
Yeah.
You should be completely close to all kinds of new information, like especially after you reach certain level of income. That's
But sticking kind of to the co-host, he also, I love in the beginning, his first comment, he makes a joke that if Rumble approach him and pay him, that he'll go there. So I like, he tries to keep the door open. You can't go back and be like, hey, you join Rumble, because he keeps the door open. But he doesn't go crazy on it. He actually says that he spoke to developers, like the point that you just made, that work on these websites and all this. So
no, and I like to clarify, if establishment media or the Young Turks, if they want to give me $1 million, I'll probably I'll go there and say, no, Jimmy Dore is wrong or everything, and you are the best professor, journalism, tell me about it, please.
Hold on, we're gonna get to Professor Anna.
No, yeah, just like, obviously $1 million, like, but then again, everybody would know why I'm saying that. So just, I hope they give me the money, but I doubt they do it, because it's like my game is just up now. But anyways, just, I hope they, $1 million, no, actually, 5. $1 million, what can you do? Buy a house? Barely. 5. I'll sell my soul for 5. Sorry.
Maybe Middle America, you can get something for even $500,000. Actually, Middle America, there you could get something good.
In Texas, you can buy half the state probably. You buy Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has bought half. You buy the other half.
And both enjoy freedom. But yeah, so before we get to Professor Anna, I kind of think maybe listen to this. Do I have a gotcha when it comes to TYT? You want to say something?
No. I'll add it.
Okay. Based on, if they're talking about misinformation, based on what I've heard and understood, Facebook was filled with misinformation when it came to the 2016 election and other times, and they're still on it. And Instagram, Instagram barely like implements copyright. So I know that they try to maybe counter some misinformation. Instagram, anything and everything goes pretty much. I
would like to point out CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, all probably the biggest like hubs of misinformation on earth. They're all on YouTube. All government like officials, including Iranian, American, whatever you want to call them, the origin sort of misinformation. Usually politicians, they're all on Twitter and YouTube. So it's just such an idiotic.
Yeah. Okay. So before moving on to Professor Anna, I just want to say maybe one thing about the co-host. So the co-host does bring up one or two issues of Glenn that he mentions. And he's like, I really enjoyed Glenn's earlier work. And the example that he gives is Glenn's latest work, which is Brazil and Lula. Like Glenn literally published a book like earlier this year. So he didn't pick the best example. That's the only thing I would say the co-host kind of dropped the ball a little bit there. But then, yeah, and then Anna also, of course, has a whole bit about how they've had one round of investing, but they never told her what to do, and she doesn't. Nobody tells her what to do at TYT. Well, you are TYT. She's like, not even Gen
Yeah,
E.
everybody's scared
Yeah.
of Anna.
Yeah, you guys are
She's
TYT.
she thinks, yeah, she thinks we're implying that she's like the
Yeah,
she's the
like
victim
the
here.
intern.
No,
Yeah.
you are the you are the dictator.
Oh, you
Yeah.
seriously? No, exactly. And as if, yeah. And you seriously think like Rumble is gonna come tell Glenn what to do? No, they want unhinged Glenn. Like, why would you even tell Glenn what to do? You want not
I'm
even
sure,
unhinged. I don't know why you
yeah,
said
look,
that. You want the current Glenn. You want Glenn Greenwald and Tulsi Gabbard to
I'm
go do their
sure,
thing and bring on
I'm
viewers.
sure, no, I'm sure if they get big enough and powerful enough, and if they don't need Glenn, they would do it, just like
Mm.
Intercept pretty much did. It's not, again, not Glenn. I don't think Glenn is thinking that Rumble people are these amazing people that are. It's just that right now there are few alternatives to YouTube. You have to align yourself with them if you want to keep this freedom of speech space as open as you can. And in the long term, you probably fail. They're gonna
Yeah.
monopolize everything at the end. But you gotta play the, you gotta fight at least. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Again, it's just everything for these people is so personal and
I
about
know.
identity and this one and that.
I mean, I might
Sorry,
make it a
I'm
bit
becoming an old
personal, but
lady.
you know, I might make it a bit personal with the Professor Anna part now. So I'm just looking to my
No,
notes.
I don't think that's
Yeah.
personal. I think that's substance. I think who teaches people. It's kind of like when I found out Stephen Colbert teaches Sunday school, I lost pretty much all respect for him. I think the people who teach our children or young whatever, that's an important issue. It's not
Yeah.
it's
No,
not a
you're right.
personal issue.
I didn't know that, but so I recently found out, like only a few months ago, that Anna's a professor, and I finally decided to go and look into her credentials. Well, I mean, I looked on Wikipedia and a few university pages, but before getting into that, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say that she's a Professor Anna in the same way. There's this joke in the online community about movies. Suicide Squad, not the Suicide Squad, not the new one, the old one,
Mhm.
won Oscars for makeup, and it's one of the worst movies ever made. So everybody jokes that, yeah, the Oscar awarded movie Suicide Squad, and it's like a joke. And it's kind of, I think Anna is in the same way. Like that's how I would categorize it. Like, Professor Anna Kasparian, it kind of undermines the whole concept of professorship. Or another, I think Steve Munchen, I never can pronounce his name, the treasury of Donald Trump. He was also, I think, one of the producers of Suicide Squad. So he's like another, like it's commonly joked that he's an award-winning producer. And it's just these things really like undermines your whole worldview.
Yeah,
It's
no,
kind of like taking acid.
I mean, I'm like, honestly, I think her being a professor, especially when she became, makes a true mockery of academia. Because listen to this, right? She got her bachelor in journalism, okay? So as a young lady, let's say 22 or so, 21, she already had her bachelor. Then, and if anybody knows information that counters this, please bring it up. Then she worked on as a producer a little bit on CBS, but then she left quickly and got her master's in political science before joining TYT in 2007. And I believe she was born in 85. So she joined TYT in 2007. That makes her like 22. That makes her 22. Then in 23, so after that, she didn't get a PhD. She didn't work. And I'm not saying that journalists are better than political commentators or anchors. We might get into discussion about this, but I distinguish it. And she's she's not a media or communication professor. She's primarily a journalism professor. By 2013, which if my calculations are right based on her age in Wikipedia, at the age of 27, maybe 28, without a PhD, not having a career in journalism, she became a professor in journalism. I mean, absolute bullshit. I don't know how. She neither had her PhD nor was like, had 30 years of experience in journalism and then was quickly completing her PhD, and they still gave her a job because, you know, you're so experienced, you have been in the field or like done the work so much. So, I mean, I don't know based on what they made her a professor.
Do you know she became immediately a professor, or she was assistant sort of professor and throughout, like until she became 3 years later, she became full professor?
Good question. And I was thinking of that. And based on what I found, no, from what I understand, she pretty much, of course, she didn't get like, you know, what's the word? Like, you know, when you're a professor for life, she didn't get tenure or anything. But, you know, she was given a full out class as the main teacher based on what I understand already in 2013. So she was given a university class, multiple classes.
I don't know what courses she specifically taught. I would assume she has probably quite significant experience and knowledge in production, in a studio production and all that. And journalism, in my view, to an extent includes that. Journalism, in my view, is the umbrella term for all of these activities. But if she was teaching field reporting, or if she was teaching epistemology of like unbiasedness or, you know, that type of thing, no, I doubt she would have been or history of journalism even, or something like that. But I think, studio production, that type of thing, I think counts as journalism too.
Fair enough. I would actually distinguish between that, but fair enough. I also give her that. I think like at least if she was like a media and broadcasting, and apparently she had some media and broadcasting classes. But we're going to go and rate my professors now. You'll see some of them, most of them say journalism, and they say that she's a professor of journalism. And for me, journalism does a different work than political commentary. Journalism, typically, you break stories by doing original reporting, whereas political commentator, co-hosts like us on shows like Anna Kasparian, we give our opinion on the news and we report on news that was already reported. So it's different than journalism. Just to finish off with this, like Glenn Greenwald, he does both. I'll throw it back to you in half a second. Glenn Greenwald is both. He was a journalist. He is a journalist when he broke like the Snowden story and other stories. And then on his channel sometimes where he talks about free speech issues or other things, there he's more of a political commentator. And I think you need different skills and you teach different things. And in university, media studies, communication, journalism are different degrees. Go ahead.
I think the differences are largely, in my view, the differences you're drawing are arbitrary because you need all these sets of skills to report. But I think what you're saying is basically you only consider original reporting journalism. And that's more or less, fair enough.
More or less. I was looking at the definition. Apparently, you can be an opinion journalist, which is like different.
I mean, look, when a word is that long, like what is philosophy? What is a philosopher? Analytical flow. Like, I don't understand why people spend their time like it's you, like in the context that you're talking, tell us what you mean by journalism, and then whatever maybe you mean a gorilla by journalism. I don't care. This is semantics. Let's just agree on some definitions and then go. But I understand you're saying that in your view, and I agree with I think original reporting is more valuable than other forms of activity that is generally referred to as journalism. But in your view, real journalism is original reporting. Is that correct?
Pretty much. And I'm actually not saying that it's more valuable or not. I'm just saying they're different jobs. I know you're saying that. No, but fair enough. But that's that. I mean, we can maybe quickly just look at a rate my professors thing. And then I don't know if others have been on it. So
I've never heard of this.
Really? No, people go on it and they pretty much, I remember hearing about my bachelor. So that's the thing. I tried to compare and see how her ratings are comparing to others. So it kind of suggested some others. And then apparently, so hers is 3.6 out of 5, which I don't think is that good, but she has 27 ratings, which is quite a bit. But then I kind of went to see what people were saying about it. And all of them are pre-2018, 2019. So it's not like a bunch of Jimmy Dore fans, like, jumped there and started like saying bad stuff. Maybe they went and downvoted it. But one good thing I learned about her is actually, so some of the best comments that you see, even though it downvoted, the first one is there, is that she took time outside of class to help improve my writing. And then I went and read a few of her op-ed kind of article styles that she puts out. And she does have a nice casual style of writing that in news media, I know is very valued. In like writing for like, writing for a established publication. So I will give her that. Many people like the next one, they're like her focus was more on ideology than journalism. So people, yeah, she doesn't get the best, and even the good ones, they're kind of, some of them are downvoted more. So again, the one that helps me writing, downvoted. So just go through them, see if any of them kind of catch your eye. But the best thing that I saw is that she helped with writing for people. But yeah, her ratings don't.
You have at least three comments about the fact that she helped them with their writing.
I love this guy. He got 16 upvotes and 1 downvote. He's like very unbearable at times. I try not to remember this class. Again, the writing one.
So that's interesting that somebody says at least 3 people in my class were taking her just to be associated with a B-list celebrity.
Yeah, no, seriously. Oh my God. And maybe there are some Jimmy Dore fans and others who went on it, because one person wrote, great professor, learned a lot from her, got 15 upvotes, but 27 downvotes. Doesn't have a lot of interesting things to teach you. What else? Well, some people say if more people actually approach journalism the way Professor Kasparian does, the world would be a better place. I would strongly disagree with that, because I think this person agrees with her ideologically, and that's what they're kind of referring. And again, the downvotes are more terrible teacher. But yeah, folks, let me know. I'm more curious in people who maybe go on this website a lot, and if they think hers are particularly bad, or that's kind of the kind of, comments that people give on these websites. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Some of them have some, wow, one person wrote good and they got 97 downvotes. Jesus Christ. And yeah, she does teach broadcasting. So here we go. One class apparently is broadcasting, and someone wrote that this class was not easy. We had to put together 4 news packages for television broadcast. So there she had experience. Although I would say she was only still 27 or 28 when she started. Wow, this comment was left in 2013. So that was in the very beginning. So yeah, still very early, I find, to make someone a professor, but sure, she did have some experience. She seemed to have moved up very quickly in her career. Kudos to her. And again, the downvotes are a lot. But okay, Sam, we've had a lot of fun here. If you have nothing to say, I think we're going to stick to the US, and let's kind of, do you want to segue to the next part, which is again about the debates that have been had on the Bad Fate podcast on Jacobin about race and socioeconomic background. So I'll throw it to you for a bit.
Sure. I thought we can segue through I had a lively discussion in our comment section about on our last video. By the way, all the people who are saying the comment sections are all insults and all that doesn't seem to be the case in our hope so far, at least, except a couple of times. But yeah, it's been very lively, polite discussion. People disagree, but they're not, angry at each other and all that.
Can I say just one thing? Sorry, one more pathetic thing to say. On Instagram, where TYT's on, now there, if you go in the comment section, or like a lot of things, everything and anything is said a lot of that. Maybe on YouTube too, no, but granted, on ours, people leave really good, like usually nice comments, even when they're telling us how crap we are. It's said in a very good way.
It's like well researched. Yeah. So yeah, I had this lively discussion with sorry, I'm very bad with names, with Aya.Jah, which I have, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. And it just became a bit tangled up and stuff. And some of it I was very drunk. So, yeah. But I was, at the end, she said something. I just wanted to, like, it was about the role of race and social constructs such as race and all that. I specifically race and sexual orientation labels, in my view, are I might put this writing in our description because I wrote something that I just to have it clearly defined in my own brain. I think these are very recent social constructs, and they were recently socially constructed to largely oppress people and to be used to divide people and pit them against each other for racial theories. I think come about in 18th century. We know like having male partners or having female partners or having same-sex partners has been common since ancient times, and nobody categorized like these guys are this group, these guys are that group. Same with like like if you come from Iran, for example, or a lot of majority of the world, it's difficult to say like it's much easier to talk about race, I think, in Europe, because there is this like there has been this sort of a fortress Europe that because like in Iran you have a person completely white skin, blue eyes, blonde hair, then you have a black man, and then you have a somebody with Asian features. So it's just, and they've all been mixed. And even if there was at some point some such a thing, like before civilization, there was like about 1 million, like 100,000 years of humans just going around and killing and sadly probably committing rape and all kinds of things, and maybe finding love, I don't know. So even if there was such a thing, it's not there anymore. It's not scientifically, it's a scientifically bogus claim. And I think these social constructs and these labels, especially these two that I mentioned, I don't mean you can't be proud of your tribe, your nation, your identity, your culture, your food. All of those are social constructs and are positive, and you can be proud of them. But I think, yeah, race especially is just such an idiotic thing to, in my view, to divide people based on. And I don't think, like, that's why I have a problem with gay pride, frankly, and all that. It's proud of what? It's a completely natural human activity. It's been going on for years. I mean, again, it's not my original thinking anyway. I'm influenced by Gore Vidal more than any other. Just this, humans have this tendency to try to categorize and patternise everything, and I just don't think it's necessary. Yes, because in case of human beings, we do have the perfect categorization system. It's called names. We have different names for each person, and we can do that. Or I think class is an actual categorization as real social, like independent from human construct to an extent, or at least it's a mixture of human conduct and nature. But but race and sexual orientation specifically, and I know a lot of people probably disagree with my take, but I just wanted to clarify that, yeah, that's what I mean by I hope they disappear.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying exactly that it's like people started talking about, like, I guess Europeans, oh, like this race is not good, that race is not good, in ways to establish their own position and take advantage of other races. I mean, that's kind of where it comes from. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's been used like that as well, but it's even more basic than that. People are stupid, because certain communities have been, let's say, have remained isolated from others. They develop, they look at other people from far and they develop idiotic theories. It's just, and then economic interests such as the ones you mentioned, or political interests such as the ones you mentioned, come and capitalize on that. But for example, if you live in Middle East, where it's been a sort of crossroad of different people and different cultures of different colors, again, I hate to use the word race because it's not real. It's a completely unscientific term. So you don't, like, it's just so, I don't know. I remember first time I found about there was this movie, I think, Look Who's Coming for Dinner or something like that. It's a Sidney Poitier movie that it's about a black man who's the girlfriend or the fiance is bringing him to visit. It's so, I don't know, I just can't. I cannot I cannot see any logic to it at all. To the idea that this man is black, therefore different. Anyway, or this man is white, therefore he's different that way. So yeah, I just think it's but I agree. I think it was developed out of a stupidity, but you are right that it was capitalized due to a specific historical processes. And by the way, if you go to Asia, you have a lot of racism towards the white man, or in the past in the Middle East, you had brown people who would pride themselves that we are like this perfect balance between the white and the black, and it's everywhere, it's been going on. So
Yeah.
it's just when a group has the upper hand, they capitalize on it. But so
I wanted to just say one thing. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say one thing about the gay pride thing that you say, for instance. Just one thing to push back a bit. I mean, I guess people who take part in gay pride, they would say, well, this is done in response of like how gay people have been treated or like demonized over the past century or so. So kind of gay pride events are countering that. I would assume that's kind of
I know it's but I would say it's a bad response. That's my contention. I know what it's. They put. That's exactly another reason. It's just not in case of homosexuality, but it's just in any case, even things that I don't agree with, I disagree with criminalizing them, because usually what happens when you criminalize, or not even criminalize, when you stigmatize something, it leads to negative, in my view, like bad reactions. And even in case of bad things, homosexuality is not a bad thing. It's a completely natural act that's been around. But I think that's a bad response. It's a very bad response. I think I'm people who are, by the way, people who stand up for their country's national anthem. I find that very weird. Like all of these pride.
I mean, don't get me started with nationalism.
All of the people talk about virtue signaling. All of this was original virtue signaling. Like this national anthem. I like my country. I really do. But and I kind of am proud of some of it and some of the things. But I don't feel pride in a sense that I didn't do anything. It's just something that exists outside of me. And stuff, or being gay, like I like to have sex with men, like somebody who's gay, they like to have. It's not okay. You're proud of that. Why are you proud of that, or why you should be ashamed of that? It's just, it is what it is. Anyway.
No, I see what you're saying there. I mean, I hate national anthems so much. Don't even get me started. It's the most mindless patriotism. National anthems and flags. I hate those two things. They're for different reasons than what you're saying, but just want to put it out there.
Some of them sound. I like the national anthem. They sound nice, or the music is good, or the flag looks cool. But I don't want to do a sing along. I'm not a 5-year-old. I don't. This is not kinder. What is this? What are you, a child? And it reminds me of these, like all these. When I was a kid, these movies about communism and like Equilibrium or whatever, these controlled big brother societies, everybody getting up and all. I don't want to ban any of this, by the way. I'm just saying I don't think they are really helpful towards to our cultural progress. But that's my view.
I mean, my only view on top of that is just I find that like flags and national anthems, they just promote mindlessness. I don't know, just like waving a flag for absolutely
if they force
no
you to
reason.
Stand up and do this, not you should have a national flag just for fun. I think it's some of them are beautiful, and it's, oh, look, our national color is purple, whatever. But it's not it's not a competition, and it's not just don't force people to get up. Just let them sit down and enjoy the music.
Yeah.
I hate this.
Okay,
I
but
don't want to sing along.
Okay, so I think after this, our sections are Commonwealth and India and all that. But I think we still have more in this on the US and regarding racism or socioeconomic differences. What Adolf Reed has been saying. Last week we talked.
sorry, I forgot about that. Look, and let me give, this is not just, again, I don't know shit about shit, so I use other people who are much more knowledgeable. Adolf Fried was on Jacobin, and for example, he argued that now in the future we can see potentially anti-racism being used to uphold capitalism, just how racism was used to uphold capitalism. And I personally was reminded of the fact that, for example, Reagan and Thatcher revolution was how social freedoms and economic freedoms and economic sort of not freedoms, but neoliberalism in economy were sort of equated and sold as a package to the people, right? So I do think that, yeah, that's why we should, I think Adolf Fried is somebody who I agree a lot with, and I think we should focus on class struggles and completely reject this racial framework of looking at the world, because it's not a helpful one. So I just wanted to give, there's the link is in the description, check that out if you're interested. And for example, we see there are recent even examples. There was a YouTube commentator, Tim Black, following the Nina Turner's loss in Senate, started attacking other Black people who come from different backgrounds, maybe better off backgrounds. I don't know specifically Briahna Joy Gray. And it's just, sort of this, that, I mean, that was, although that would, I don't know, that's a weird one, because that's kind of an example of, he was attacking her for her class backgrounds. So in a way, maybe, I don't know, it was one of the weirdest things.
Yeah, it made no sense.
But yeah,
you criticize her for going to Ohio,
Yeah, so I just generally think, we should all hopefully focus more on the class struggle and realize that specifically race and not all social constructs, but specifically race is extremely, in my view, harmful.
I just want to maybe elaborate a bit on the Adolf Fried, and based on what I think he was saying is that he's not, of course he says like individual racism and all this is bad, but when you point out facts like, blacks have African Americans are disproportionately less insured and everything, he's like, yes, so but what does it good if African Americans and white people both have the same percentage of people who don't have health insurance? No, you just want everyone to have health insurance, to go about it that way, like that you solve the whole issue. But I think that's what he was just trying to say, is that when you just focus on the race thing, so you make the situation of perhaps African Americans as good as white people in the US, but that doesn't mean that it's still good. If you address the whole class issue, you can fix the whole thing. That's kind of what I understood. It's hard for me to understand. I don't read sometimes, I must say. I definitely must say.
No. He's genius. There are two other things that I think is important to point out. One is the tactical problem. When you start focusing on a specific group, whether you want it or not, whether you have the best intentions or not, you will alienate other groups. It will happen. And in my view, that's a big tactical disadvantage of going after improving the situation of a specific minorities. That's one thing. I think, secondly, especially on the race thing, when you start doing this, you are accepting their framework that race exists. Maybe you don't, but by playing in this game, you are implying that you accept this game, that race exists. No, race is a social construct, and as a result of this social construct that benefited a certain group of people, certain institutions have been created to enforce that value system. That should be attacked, not racism, because it's not there. It's a complete bullshit. It's a myth. It's like free market, it doesn't exist. It's a, so that's what I personally hate about this, because I don't want to buy into this framework, because I like, if you look into genetic background of most people, unless they come from very unique communities, let's say like Amish or some cults or some art, that type of thing. We feel been mixed, and even in those those things, they go back, let's say, to medieval ages, like, or Japanese people or something. But even Japanese people, they came from mainland China, and before that, before civilization, we have a huge history. So I just don't want to buy into that framework. But yeah, I think your point, Adolf Reed makes that point very clearly, that yeah, it's kind of like equality, like in misery. Doesn't, like, that's not something we want. We want good equality for everybody, and we want people not to be judged based on some social constructs that benefits very few.
Yeah, the only thing I would push back is because racism and race, when it's been constructed, whether it's been socially constructed, has been weaponized in such a way. I think that there are potentially some areas and stuff that it makes sense to talk about it more that way, but I understand his general tone and his general argument. And of course, that's in the US. It's just, it has played such a big role, especially towards African Americans, the way that they have gone about it, that I can see perhaps why sometimes it is. So maybe I disagree a bit with Adolf Reed without really being able to back it up or give more information.
Again, you're right completely, but I would say the left has played along, sadly, again, in the framing of the narrative as Black people. For example, look at the issue of, I can never pronounce this word quite right, paying back the people who come from a slave ancestry, some like financial, how do you pronounce that word? Do you know?
I forgot what the word was even.
Repatriation.
Anyway, reparations. Okay, yeah, that's why.
Reparations.
Reparations. I was like, it's not repatriation. That sounds like being sent back to
repatriation. Yeah. Reparations. Reparation. They keep saying Black people should be paid reparations. No, Black people shouldn't be paid reparations. Barack Obama should not be paid reparations. Obama does not come from a slave background. People who come from a slave background should be paid reparations, not Black people. There were even 12 years a slave, there were Black people who were part of middle class and aristocracy in North of America. Just these Black people, descendants of slaves who were unjustly, in our view, were used as slaves, and their work was not, even by the standards of the time, was not even fairly compensated, should be compensated. It's not even, and then it's not even that controversial, because if find a white person who was enslaved, you pay him too, and then and try to find one just to shut up the racists, just to shut up the racists, just find one like Irish slave. So, and then you get away the excuse, so to speak, and you are actually being more correct. I know a lot of rich Black people who their parents were like well off. They moved to America, and now they're rich and Black, and they're in America. And of course, they still face a lot of issues that a white rich person wouldn't face.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they should be paid. They should be paid whatever their money is, whatever the thing is.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought of perhaps one example of when, when, for instance, if the country, like back in the day, like said, for instance, Black people cannot own a house in X or Y or Z area, or Black people cannot go to university specifically, then it makes sense to focusing on the race. So you have to remove that part of the law that specifically says that if you're a Black person, you can't go to university.
No,
however, if you say that nowadays, if you say that African Americans are underrepresented at university, it is true, but that's because, I would say, because of the historical background of African Americans, more of them, a higher proportion of them are in poverty and in lower social classes. Therefore, they cannot make it to university. I mean, I'm also like wrestling with this kind of way of thinking a bit more now. And it doesn't mean that African Americans are not disproportionately affected, but that's because of the legacy of it that has influenced their socioeconomic background now. And of course, there is individual racism, but that's a different story. That's a different
it's
story.
like
If you're racist
if you
towards blah blah blah.
if you have an infection and it's causing you to have a fever, you can just focus on the symptoms of the fever, and sometimes that helps, and that's a good thing, and you should. Otherwise, the person dies. But at the same time, you should add the main thing is the fundamental issues, the getting antibiotics in your body to fight the infection. And yeah, as long as the socioeconomic situation doesn't change, everything else is going to be the minority, whichever minority it may be, will be underrepresented, will be exploited, will be taken advantage of.
Yeah. And I mean, really the last thing that I wanted to add is that both this Tim Black, I mean, this kind of individual attack towards Briahna Joy Gray, and like, it's just mind-blowing. And then it kind of just reminded me of, oh, where's the gentleman? I'm just trying to find his name. He was on the Bad Fate podcast the other day. Brett something. What was his name?
Bertrand Cooper.
Yeah, Bertrand Cooper. I mean, he points out in a way, Bertrand Cooper, he points out a real problem that, poor African Americans are underrepresented in like entertainment industry, but the same thing is of course said about white people. But then he goes on this very individual based like response. He wants like Donald, the actor, what's his name?
To call people from that he knows.
Yeah, to get, instead of coming up with like a systematic response to, okay, so lower class African Americans are underrepresented in the entertainment industry. They don't get to go to university, which is of course makes complete sense. But why not? I mean, I didn't highlight this last time. I just found it came to me just how individual based his critique was. He went on this one actor and he wanted like, these actors to, go out of their, go and like get some people from lower classes and bring them so they can do representation, instead of having a more, systematic way, be like, why aren't there like programs or ways that make sure that people in lower classes also have, access to some opportunities that will increase the representation? So just the individual based like critique that he made. Okay, folks, really sorry about this. Starting on next video next week, we won't have this issue again. But yeah, so I'm not even sure where I got cut off, but I was just going back to Brett Cooper and the kind of individual based solution that he was trying to suggest to this problem of underrepresentation was really strange and really hit me more after we did our podcast. So he wanted, for people from higher classes of African Americans from higher social classes who make it to the entertainment industry to kind of go and like get maybe like pick and choose some people from lower classes to make sure to have a better representation, instead of providing a kind of more systematic and structural solution, which is typically what is done in the left. So for instance, better programs or opportunities that will allow people from lower classes to also reach Hollywood entertainment industry, and therefore fix the representation issue that he was highlighting. I found that really weird. And then I tried to kind of connect it to the Tim Black thing. I don't even know really well that it connects, except that Tim Black's attack was super individual on Briahna Joy Gray, saying that she shouldn't be going to Ohio during that time. She claims that her mom lives there, family, which is, I believe, true. And even if she didn't, I mean, just the only common thing, I guess, based on these two things, because Tim Black really didn't have an argument based on what I heard, is they're very individual. So if the connection is a bit flimsy there, sorry about that. But yeah, Sam, throwing it back to you.
No, I forgot to mention something about the Black and racial sort of focus and all that. For example, I just wanted to give this example. I don't know, I heard this, if Adolf Fritz said this or another person. I've been watching a lot of content. But like there was this program, I think in 70s onwards or something, that they started sort of community control or handing power down to communities. And by the way, it kind of plays into my usual theme of democracy is very bad, like unqualified local democracy. And then what you would have is the Black communities got like in a sense, some sort of a local power and all that. And what you have is increased segregations, as white people sort of go to suburbs where they can control the schools and everything, and it's just everything becomes a bunker type thing. So yeah, again, just that's why I really think this type of looking through things through this lens is largely a negative thing. But yeah, sorry, it's just I forgot this point, so I thought I mentioned it again.
Yeah, it really does. And although I still think there are some merits, I mean, I'm trying to think with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, and I mean, Africans Americans being disproportionately
that I think
killed by police officers. I mean, there's definitely there. It's just, I think I would say that
issue,
that combining it with social would achieve a much better, I think that's what Adolf Reed would say, I don't know if it words, would achieve a much better outcome if it even goes beyond that. But I don't want to completely dismiss it, and I'm really thinking about this, out loud, and we make a video every week. So, I'm no expert in any of this.
No, I would say, yeah, that issue is, that's the one that probably can best frame it through that lens, even though I'm very critical of that lens. Yeah, that issue specifically, because even if you're rich or, it has like, that's American police, it's just the way they're trained and the 100%. Way they're rooted in basically slave patrols and all that. So that one is a really, go case by case basis, I guess, but generally speaking.
But I think like the insurance example that they gave was really good. There are more. Anyway, let's move on. Let's leave the US and move on to UK brief Commonwealth. So I think we have one specifically on the UK, which Sam is going to talk about. But first, we'll start on India. So Sam, I've got pretty much what I'm going to talk about here from the print. So maybe you've read it. You're the one who told me about this. But pretty much last Sunday, it was the 75th anniversary of India's independence. So its Prime Minister Modi gave a speech, and the print highlighted 5 key things that he talked about, and other outlets really picked 1 or 2 of them. And I want to focus on those 2 of them. So the first thing that he talked about, which is that he's proposing a 1.35 trillion US dollar national infrastructure plan. So it just immediately reminded me of the US one. And it's funny how the figure is so similar. But of course, he didn't provide any details of over how many years or for how long. But yeah, and he mentioned some other things that should be kind of music to progressive ears, which is that, that these will make a lot of jobs for people. And I guess it's just a way for the government to both improve its infrastructure so the country can produce more and GDP can grow, while ensuring that more people will have jobs. So I don't know if you have anything to mention about that before I move to the second point. There aren't any details, but it kind of puts US's infrastructure plan to shame. I find that the dollar amount is kind of the same, although there are no details given and what they really want to do with infrastructure.
India is a far more populous country and a far less developed country.
That's true. But the US is far richer also. So you could say that it would have more room to improve, but no, exactly. Fair enough. The other thing that caught my attention is that, the focus seems to really, once again, climate change. I feel like, and maybe it's because that new report came out and we're getting near 2030 when countries made a lot of pledges in 2015 in Paris about reaching like net zero carbon emission. So another main thing they talked about was that while they're trying to reduce their greenhouse emissions and everything, they want to become a global hub for green hydrogen. So they want it to be done that way. So I looked a little bit into green hydrogen, see what it is. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but pretty much hydrogen can be, as a form of energy, as a source, can be produced taken from water. So it has to be this process that separates it, or from methane. But currently only 1% of the world's hydrogen, which is produced, is green, because it only becomes green depending on the source. So if you're using coal as a way, which is how it's done, or oil in a way to produce the methane that can then be used in different things, in energy and different ways, then it's not green at all. But pretty much for it to become green, your original source has to be renewable, so solar or hydro. And India is claiming right now that, from his speech, it sounds like it's going to become a big priority of theirs, and other countries are also working on it. I was reading about it, and it's something that big companies, and they're also very interested, and countries are very interested, because there's still a good way of making money through it, I guess. But that was the other really interesting thing they talked about. And it kind of just, one takeaway I had is that, like, a lot of these solutions that they offer for, like, reaching, net zero carbon emissions and all this, are based on things that are, like, not even done, and so much, like, progress and money has to be spent to reach that. But yeah, so that was really the other second main thing that he talked about, and their focus on green hydrogen. And perhaps in India they have more access to renewable energy, and then when you get the hydrogen, you can use it for a lot of things, and I believe it doesn't emit any emissions itself. So it's all about the process of creating the hydrogen. But yeah, two kind of progressive takeaways from his speech. The third one that's kind of funny, I'll just mention in passing. Apparently, starting 2023, all of India's rice will be, they're going to add nutrients to it to increase the nutrients, which I guess is a good thing, maybe a way of combating lack of nutrition, because a lot of rice is consumed in India. But yeah, that was kind of the other one. But yeah, a very kind of progressive oriented 75th year anniversary speech by Modi. But yeah, go ahead.
I think you're being way too kind to put.
Yeah, am I? Yeah, no, fair enough, 100%.
It's a nationalistic thing, and from what we know from Modi's government, it's probably going to be filled with corruption and all.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I don't think any of these green goals will be achieved. I would say India, because it's is one of the countries that is already very hard hit by climate change. So maybe that would sort of encourage them to do more than others.
Yeah, and he did mention other things about how their railway apparently will become will not emit anymore very soon. But the green hydrogen one is really a big one if they manage to get such an industry going.
Most of these goals will not be achieved, in my view, or will be achieved through like creative accounting, as they say, or it's like like the batteries were bought from Myanmar and there was carbon emitted in production. There are ways around it, so I think I'm not very hopeful.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. I agree with you there. But yeah, and I mean, the other comment that I kind of wanted to make is, I mean, I guess people can't talk about austerity anymore, but at least it's good to see that austerity is not suggested, even though it wouldn't make any sense as a way of getting out of pandemic. It really wouldn't make any sense. But that's like really put away, and now it's more on government spending.
It never made any sense.
Yeah, I know. But now it's more about government spending, which is, I guess, something that the left kind of always wants. I mean, Biden's plans, his plans, and everything. But yeah, those are kind of my two takeaways there. So let's move on to the UK, Sam. What do you have there?
So in the UK, there wasn't much news in terms of Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. In terms of everything was Taliban and COVID focused. But in UK, we had a couple of tiny sort of Labour infighting updates. One is that Labour headquarters is getting rid of about a quarter of its workforce. And their unions, workers, and a lot of people have threatened that they're going to go on a strike. So let me just read this. Labour faces potential strike action among its staff following a plan to cut about a quarter of its workforce amid a funding crisis and a restructuring of party's organization. Most of the people on the left of the Labour think that this is a cynical attack again by Keir Starmer and his team to reorganize the party in a way that benefits them and their faction. The funding crisis that they're referring to is largely a result of Keir Starmer's decision, a political decision, and I will clarify that, to settle a lawsuit with former members of the party, if I'm not mistaken, about anti-Semitism, while the lawyers of the Labour Party were telling him he should not settle, he should go to court and they would win. So it's kind of a crisis of his own making, and now he's taking advantage of that. And just to add another negative story to the bunch, on another front, Ken Loach, who's a famous British filmmaker known for his highly evocative social dramas focusing on working class people in UK. Most famously, I think Kes is probably his most famous film. It's famous that his movies are discussed in the parliament, and it focuses on people struggling with benefit system, that type of thing. And Ken Loach tweeted this, so let me just read his tweet, or his statement, I don't know. Labour HQ headquarters finally decided I'm not fit to be a member of their party, as I will not disown those already expelled. Referring to all these groups that have been expelled recently, referring to the suspension of Jeremy Corbyn. Well, I am proud to stand with good friends and comrades victimized by the purge. There is indeed a witch hunt. In brackets, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer. I would imagine the bracket Sir Keir Starmer was added by the magazine's editor. So Starmer and his clique will never lead a party of the people. We are many, they are few. Solidarity. We are many, they are few is a clear reference to Jeremy Corbyn's sort of slogan during his 2017 campaign. Itself comes from, I think, a poem by Lord Byron, if I'm not mistaken. Lord Byron, or maybe it was Shelley. Maybe it was Shelley. I don't know. That it says, we are the many. It's a reference to that. So the ongoing onslaught of the left of the Labour Party is continuing. And it's just the Labour Party, there is still more mechanisms for the Labour Party. In my view, it's not like the Democratic Party. It's not a completely centrist party to its core. Although it has historical roots in center, Labour Party. But it's just, they don't seem to be willing. Like when Jeremy Corbyn was in power, he didn't use his power. He should have used his power to destroy these turncoats. I don't know how else to describe them. And he didn't. And I don't know when the left will learn that the next time, or like, I hope these strikes, there are these plans that Labour members are drawing up to take over the party. But this time, I think there should be a purge. I don't think people like a Starmer, Peter Mandelson, Belair, I mean, they should either they should be kicked out, or a different party without them should be set up, because their view of the world is not reconcilable with the rest of the Labour Party.
No, 100%, 100%. I mean, here on this specific, I don't have to add, I don't want to talk too much about Afghanistan, but I was listening to Keir Starmer and what he was saying, to a few clips Novaro Media showed in Parliament. I mean, you know, I agreed more with Boris Johnson on what he was saying about Afghanistan than Keir Starmer. I mean, Keir Starmer was like the more, you know, he wanted to stay in Afghanistan and go.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a complex thing there.
No, for
they
sure.
were both wrong, but he's a disappointment in every sense of the word.
Yeah, beyond disappointed.
He
a real demagogue too.
Not really. No.
I mean, he tries to.
No, you need a little bit of charisma, or not. I don't know whatever Trump had. I don't know if it's called charisma or just, you know, whatever the dumpster fires have that you sort of, you know, get attracted to looking at them. But Keir Starmer doesn't even have that. He's an office worker. Like, that was his level of.
Yeah, and I mean, so far he's doing terribly, as we mentioned, pretty much in every video that we've done. Okay, Sam. I think now we have. If I'm not sure if you have anything else to add here. If not, I think we've reached our progressive research review, where you picked 2 studies for this week, and then of course we have Afghanistan. So one of the studies we both kind of liked and we found useful. So I think not that the second one isn't useful, and you'll elaborate on that. But I thought that first I will give a we'll get to it exactly.
I'll be the bad guy.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I agree with you there. But the second study that you shared was I found to be very interesting because it laid out really why Russia is. Do you want me to? Yeah, go ahead. I was going to summarize this.
I just wanted to read
a good one, really.
I just wanted to first read the title and the author's name.
Please.
Just sorry. So the one that you're talking about, it's an article about Russian intervention in Syria. The title, by the way, these are academic articles, and these were published in a Journal of International Relations and Foreign Policy, December 2020. So we are going to focus on relatively recent research. The title of this research is Energy and Geoeconomics, Evidence Underpinning Russian Intervention in Syria, written by Nada El Abdi.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, would you take, so pretty much another way that the paper could be titled is Why Russia Cares About Syria. I mean, that could be like a more like chilled title, non-academic title. And when you take the individual points, it's not like it's anything breakthrough, but he does a good job of really listing all of them. So the first one,
I think it's a she. No?
Oh, it's a she. Sorry, I should have even.
I don't know. Nada.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
You're right. I just assume. I always assume my built-in misogyny. Joking, but let's.
Feminist here.
Yeah, there we go. Sam is a good guy here, as usual. Correct.
Or hair, or eat, or
whatever they were like. Okay, well, Nada does a good job of great job listing them. So the first one is really Russia's interest in Syria's hydrocarbon sector, from the point that Syria has a lot of gas and oil, both of them. So, all these involvements that Russia has whenever it's protecting Syria and certain regions, it's gaining more and more shares into these different energy sectors that Assad is giving them. So building better partnerships, so then they can get a share of the pie when they're able to again capitalize on it. Because I mean, right now, I don't think they can really sell much of it to other countries because of sanctions. So it pointed out one or two sources, really. I'm not going to get into all of them, but one here, I read, quote, new sources of oil were also discovered in 2015 in the controversial Golan Heights, a Syrian territory occupied by Israel since 1981. Finally, the most important discovery is found in the Levanten Basin, where Syria has an interesting future in the offshore oil and gas industry. So the first one is really, they want to build as many partnerships as possible with Syria in order to profit based on these. The second one that it goes on is about military and strategic cooperation. So Russia is able to, to gain new military areas and bases thanks to its involvement in Syria, from where it can work from in the future, including naval bases. So here I didn't take too much, Sam. I don't know if you have anything to add, but also is talking that Russia is, in addition to that, taking advantage of, improving its military and showcasing its strength, both through the involvement there, but also by running training and all kinds of different things in Syria. So I don't know if you want me to just do all of them and then maybe you can add, or if you have something you want to add here. If not, I'll continue. And then the other one is really to maintain and further strengthen ties with Iran and Turkey. So Russia is saying that, Russia wants to have Iran as a partner and not a competitor, especially if Iran is later on able to, again, if sanctions are removed, to even sell more of its oil. And then with the Turkey one, it's very interesting. So it's saying that Turkey is very dependent on Russian energy. So it imports 55% of its gas and 35% of its gold from Russia. So it wants to maintain that. But perhaps even more importantly, it wants to prevent Turkey making deals with other countries to the east, so the Gulf, some of the Gulf monarchies, and not allow them to therefore export their energy to Europe, because one of Russia's biggest clients is exporting its own energy that it has in its own country and offshore bases to Europe. but also now with other like countries like from Syria, if they're able to, and all this, to have their energy flowing from there. And finally, really the other one, and this kind of relates to the other ones, is that they don't want to allow Gulf monarchies, again, for them to have their pipelines go through Syria. So ensuring that, because that would, again, add a competition for them. But the author also does a good job of highlighting how Russia at the same time doesn't want to demonize too much and piss off the Gulf monarchies too much, because of course it still works with them, has partnerships with them, and of course it sells weapons to them. So I kind of tried to give a little summary them. Sam, maybe you can fill in some holes there and maybe you can elaborate on some of them. But if not, great paper and short paper, people can go read like 6-7 pages. And of course you'll get much more out of it than me giving a review.
Sure. No, yeah, it was great overview. I would say the only point of contention I had with the article was that I don't think Russia is, they may try, but I don't think they are very hopeful about turning Turkey into a ally. They might want to cooperate with Iran, and that would make sense for them. But I don't think Turkey has I don't know when was this article written, because the article may have been written a couple of years ago by the time it got published. It takes a time. But Turkey has developed its own, has found its own energy sources, and Russia is upset about the fact that on several raw materials, it's dependent on Turkey. Turkey has been very, aggressive in Ukraine and Caucasus. So I do think, and let's not forget, during Syrian civil war, Turkey shut down a Russian airplane, if I'm not mistaken, and there was a whole debacle over that. Yeah. So and Russia and Turkey, by the way, are old enemies. Everybody thinks in terms of Cold War and America and all that, but especially in Middle East and in India, and these places have longer memories and have, like, for a Turk and for a Russian and Turk, they consider each other like historical enemies. I mean, I'm not talking about average people. I'm talking about like people who think about these type of historical feuds and all that, or Greeks and Persians, or Greeks, and they don't see themselves in this sort of way that left everywhere sees themselves, that there is this America gang and then there is this resistance gang, like Iranians and Russians. Their cooperation is highly highly contagious. Contentious. Yeah, it's just COVID news. Yeah. And so and they have historical, and besides that, they're neighbors. At the end of the day, a lot of times they go like, America is all the way over there, but these guys are, what I mean, like, there are all these things at play. So I'm a bit suspicious about that Russia is trying to improve, like, they may even want that, but I don't think that's likely at all.
Yeah. No, true. But I mean, he does highlight a lot of, I guess, Turkey's still dependent a lot on their energy. I mean, no, it's very good. I mean,
sure.
Yeah, I guess just to summarize it one last,
But for example, the recent Nagorno-Karabakh war led to basically a land corridor between Azerbaijan and Turkey. And I mean, everybody pretty much agrees that's going to be where they're going to make a gas pipeline or oil pipeline from Baku to mainland Turkey. So I think that relationship is going to get worse, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, so before we move on, just to summarize it again, one is to really make money off the energy sources that Syria has, but also preventing pipelines that would be competitors of them passing through Syria and other territories. And I mean, of course, I just think, like, overall, even before like reading this article, I mean, Russia couldn't have afforded for Syria to also, not be on their side. But great article, and you did a good job adding things. What about the second article? Did you have something that how do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Let me just introduce the article was published in the same Journal of International Relations and Foreign Policy, 2020, December. The title of the article is Bilateral and International Relations of Turkey and Iran during 1945 to 1990. So during the Cold War, basically. The author is Mehmet Nur Altinoras. I'm definitely mispronouncing his family name, and I apologize. The article is about 6 pages long, and it has a very limited bibliography, to be honest, but there are a couple of good books there, like Cyrus Ghani's book on Iranian history and all that. But this article, I saw the title and I was like, okay, this article I might be interested in because I'm interested in geopolitics and stuff. And it reminded me of everything I hate about academic journals and everything that's wrong with academic journals. I mean, okay, first of all, there is nothing necessarily wrong or even controversial or even interesting in these articles. It's like a summary page of a Wikipedia page. It's like a summary of a Wikipedia page of Iran-Turkish relations during Cold War, and it's referenced, and it's, there's no problems in terms of all that, and it's got abstract and all that. But like opposite of something I was saying about an article a week ago, this is like sorry about the technical difficulties. Yeah, contrary to my criticism of another article last week, this article has abstract referencing structure, perfect. But in terms of content, there isn't anything new. There isn't like the whole article basically boils down to the fact that during Cold War, Iran and Turkey's foreign relations and relations towards each other when they were conducting it, they had to take into account Cold War. Wow, what a original insight. This is an article published in December 2020, about 30 years after Cold War, about relations before that. And I genuinely, and then I just love this. I love this at the end. The last 11 years of Cold War, so this is supposedly this article, which has no original insight, has no interesting analysis, has nothing, right? It's supposed to at least cover the historical period during the Cold War. It barely does that. It's the barest of the bares of summaries. I don't think he mentions coup d'etats. He doesn't mention in Iran or in Turkey, barest of summaries. And then in the end, so again, remind you, supposed to cover from 1945 to 1990. The last 11 years of Cold War is entirely a different chapter for Iran. Iran has the Iranian Revolution in 1979, so 11 years before 1990. Direct quote: the domestic, social, religious, and cultural life, along with international positions, were drastically reversed. The analysis of this period is an interesting subject for further study since the regime is still existing in Iran. So, in his own limited scope, let me read the title again. In his limited scope, bilateral and international relations of Turkey and Iran during 1945 to 1990, he excludes the last 11 years. He excludes the most fascinating part, which is one of these countries had a complete change of governments, and how could that play into the dynamics of Cold War or something. I don't know. There's so many fascinating takes you can have. And this guy got published in a journal, not in a magazine, because I was so harsh on article on a magazine, and then I had this discussion with a friend who was saying, well, magazine is not trying to be a academic journal, it's trying to reach somebody's heart and mind, so to speak. It's not about the scientific argument and stuff. So I thought I really highlight this. And there has been a number of, by the way, experiments that people have done, that they submitted fake argue like fake articles, really well-known academics to point out the fact that academic journals are increasingly, and it's just awful. I mean, increasingly is bad. It's just the standards of academic rigor is just going down and down and down and down. And while I have my huge criticisms of empiricists and positivists and all that, I thought I should highlight an example of it in social sciences as well, of something that is just like, this is, in my view, this is highest school reports are more in depth and more intelligent and more original, because they again, I'm not trying to be rude to the writer. I'm sure the writer has original takes and stuff, but it seems like he didn't even want to go there. Like, he's either timid, maybe he comes from like a German French tradition of writing that they don't, like the Anglo tradition, they don't try to forcefully argue a point or something.
No,
but it's just, there's nothing there.
Well, I mean,
because his name is Turkish, so I assume he may have some German sort of tradition in his education. I mean, I'm making complete assumptions based on his name. So yeah.
I mean, I found the article, I mean, I also found it extremely weird. Maybe I disagree actually with one or two things. I mean, okay, maybe better than a high school report, but the paper read very much like a report giving an overview of a situation, whereas the previous one that we talked about, okay, independent variable and its effect on dependent variable is very natural science like, and doesn't have to always be like that. But in the previous article, they explained why Russia is interested in Turkey, which is the dependent variable. So he explains it with a bunch of reasons. So it fell into that scientific framework, and the sourcing was good. I mean, sometimes I find people oversource in the first one, people oversource, but this one, I just counted, the guy had 10 sources. One of them was a website. I mean, this paper was in the first page, I'm looking right now, there's no sourcing. He doesn't source anything. And then there are 10 of them. I mean, I was shocked that it passed with such level of sourcing and referencing, just 10 references with one of them being a website. I found that really shocking. But just one thing I'd push back. I mean, it doesn't always have to be original. Much of science is about reinforcing what you know. So you find, again, more evidence supporting something. But this paper doesn't do that at all. That applies a lot to like the natural sciences. So again, they find it and again, they reinforce it. But he or she, they don't do that at all. But I was shocked with the sourcing. I was shocked with the level of sourcing.
Yeah, exactly. I recall, again, like in the first year of university, you had to have at least 10 sources for like a 1,000-word art, like, like not even for a long art, like, just, anyways, that's one aspect that, it's not.
I mean, you pretty much have to source every other sentence has kind of to be sourced in like almost pretty much.
Or like, even if you want to prove that I've read the books, I'm aware of the literature, anyways. But I think, again,
where's the literature review? Anyway, these papers are written very differently. I mean, both of them. The first one I talked about is good, although it is still a bit strange.
The first one, it's not a proper paper that, it doesn't have a full literature review, but it pays lip service to literature. By the way, I think you're being way too kind. This is not a descriptive essay, because first of all, you read the essay, look, if, again, I come back to this pet peeve of hate of mine, if you don't want to talk about something right, don't talk about it. Giving this shitty overview that just washes over all the major important details, just don't talk about it. If you're going to give a shit, like, if you want to, like, it's like me giving you a very brief summary of a movie and spoiling it for you. Well, just shut the fuck up. Let the guy go watch the movie. Why are you, like, if you want to make it so brief that I think it's so brief that it's misleading and pointless. Like, it's misleading and pointless. One. Two, the period of time that he's supposed to be describing, at the end, the last sentence of the article, he cops out of a decade of it. A decade of it. He cops out of it. So it's just, this is pathetic. This is like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
no, this
but
one was
yeah,
really
10,
strange.
10 references, really? 10 references? And like
With one of them being
the
history.com. Like those usually don't count. Those
no,
websites, they don't count
yeah,
as
exactly.
references.
There is one.
They're
I didn't want
good,
to
it's
go into
fine,
this.
but they don't count
I
usually.
Yeah, I didn't want to go into this minutia of details, but look at this like reference on Iran history. Cyrus Ghani, I have the book right here. It's a book taught in most universities about Iranian history, but it's like the most, like that's the first book, you know, that's the first book they give you to read about creation of modern Iran. And then, you know, it's the textbook that then everybody sort of criticized and answered to. It's pathetic. It's just
no. This one is really. This one was really strange. I mean, I was really shocked with this one.
Yeah, we are hoping to do more of these academic because I genuinely believe this trend that, you know, two trends. One in social studies with these bullshit arguments that you write a no nonsense, pointless arguments, and you put some references. You know, descriptive, whatever you want to call them, but descriptive without any insight. And
Yeah,
then
no.
in more natural
fine,
sciences,
you're right.
More natural sciences, or maybe not natural sciences, more empiricist, positivist, that, oh, we studied 12 people and now based on that we can say that all humanity reflect, like, you know, no, you can't. Or, you know, we ran 2 tests, and based on these 2 academic tests we can generalize about all humanity and stuff. I really hate this in academic journals, and I genuinely think they both things need to stop.
Yeah, and I mean, different things that you study, you have to take different approaches. There is not a one size fits all approach that's 100% sure. There's some have to be descriptive, some have to be based on experiments. Some you can generalize, some are very limited, some you can just say a little bit. I mean, maybe there's a topic you can only interview 20 people. There's no one else you can interview, but of course, then you limit. So I don't want to come off as they all have to be like that. But one thing you can say is the sourcing for this paper is unique and one of a kind. I've never seen that. But yeah, folks, let us know in the comments section if you think we're being too harsh on this one. But the first one's really interesting. I'm sorry if we skipped over kind of the findings of this one. We wanted to more talk about
there are no findings.
Yeah, or like whatever they talk about. I mean, you could summarize whatever it is that
Turkey and Iran had to think about that there is a Cold War. Who didn't? Like, oh, did you know during the Genghis Khan, other countries thought about the potential attack by Genghis Khan? Did you know that? That's my article about Mongolian early history. Sorry.
All right, Sam, let's move on to our bonus Afghanistan segment. This should be a relatively long one, and it's mainly going to be led by you, but I'll chime in here and there. But yeah, I thought I'll just give a quick overview of the different segments, because we're going to include specific timestamps for this Afghanistan video as well. So first, we're just going to give a quick recent overview of Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan, pretty much. Then we're going to include a timeline of different events over the past 20 years, not all of them, or even maybe going further back a bit, I'm not sure. And then the different actors involved, some other notable events, Afghan views, so different people in Afghanistan, diaspora who have been interviewed on TV and other places, the media's coverage, international reactions, and even end with further analysis. So I think it's pretty much that, but you know, I'll see what we say and I'll timestamp accordingly. But yeah, so I'll throw it back to you, Sam, to get us started.
Sure. So, I mean, I just wanted to add that, you know, yeah, it's been this is awful pretty much all over, like everything we cover today. So there's no, it's not a, you know, if you don't feel good, probably don't watch it. But I think, you know, it's just awful things. But at the same time, though, I would say that there is quite, I mean, no, I don't want to blow our own trumpets or anything, but there is, because we had access to Persian sources, I do feel like there's quite a lot of interesting content in this. And I've been getting into a lot of debates with people, and people become very emotional and get very angry and all that. I highly suggest, because most of us can't do anything about any of this, to just remain calm. And if I'm describing something, it doesn't mean I approve of it or I care about it or I support it and all that. So because recent, especially in Iran, the debate surrounding this has been very heated, you know, and I love discussion and debates, and I like even lively discussions, but heated debates, I'm not a fan of.
Really? You didn't tell me about that. Interesting. I mean, I could imagine, but yeah, I could
Yeah,
see it.
well, yeah, it gets you know, it should, like, facts. I like, I mean, not that there are, like, I'm a bit postmodern in that sense, but let's look at events and
Yeah.
what's happening. But to give a very short overview of the recent event, was that following the 2-year, I believe, negotiations between the US government and Taliban forces, US government, the deadline for US government to fully withdraw from Afghanistan is approaching. They withdrew significant amount of their forces, and Taliban used the opportunity to take over the country pretty much. I mean, if anybody was following, it was a couple of days of news of, like, they took over this province, now they took over this province, this capital, and finally they were at the gates of Kabul. They seem to have sort of in a peaceful manner entered Kabul after former President Ashraf Ghani, the president of Afghanistan, flee from the country. From what we know so far, he didn't let anybody know, including Abdullah, who's sort of, him and Ashraf Ghani were in sort of a power sharing government type thing. So, or Amrullah Saleh, he's vice president, who now claims to be the legitimate president of Afghanistan, although nobody knows where he is, and he's in hiding.
His what,
And
sir?
yeah,
You said his wife's president? Sorry, I misheard you.
no,
Oh,
no,
vice
sorry,
president. Sorry.
his vice.
My
Yes,
bad.
yes, his vice. Yeah, Amrullah Saleh. Yeah, he's vice president. Nobody, yeah, he. People think he's probably still in Afghanistan. Following the takeover, there were, you know, gruesome scenes of people fleeing. There were, I mean, what came across was the lack of planning by US and NATO forces in evacuation. The people who were mostly left behind were Afghan people who had worked with US government or US forces or NATO forces or foreign companies. And we saw some really awful scenes. 2 people were dropped from an airplane. One of them was a youth footballer, we found out today.
Oh, really?
So really tragic scenes.
Wow.
I mean, you know, for now we are just, by the way, describing it. Following Ashraf Ghani's escape, Hamid Karzai and Abdullah released videos. Hamid Karzai is Afghanistan's former president, and all these people reside in what is called Arg. Arg is Persian word for citadel, and the citadel of Kabul is Arg, is where all the officials, presidents, all of those reside. And Taliban forces entered the Arg, entered the citadel. And now there are apparently negotiations going on over some kind of either power sharing, but I think it's more likely that it's going to be a handover of power. Taliban were also released the statements, and they were trying to basically calm everybody down and try to stop the rush to the airport and rush to the borders and all that. They were somewhat conciliatory in their messages. I mean, even before taking over Kabul, as they were taking over major cities like Herat, they left the diplomatic missions of different countries they left them in peace, and they said, we provide security for you. And now they basically are playing now they're playing this game that we are going to be good international actors. Even further than that, they said that women will be allowed to work and study as long as they follow Islamic laws, which is basically leaves the door open quite a bit for different interpretations. On a positive sign, though, the day after Taliban took over, both Ariana TV and Tulu TV, which are Afghanistani, I believe, private news channels, they both went on with female presenters. So, and there was no incident. One channel apparently has been closed for a short period of time. And female reporters were present at the Taliban news conference, which was fantastic and odd. And it's genuinely, we live in the Matrix, I feel, and Matrix has caught a virus. Anyway, but so they were very conciliatory towards everybody, pretty much, international things. One thing was, which just stood out in their news conference, was fascinating to me, was that they were accused of censorship and all that based on Sharia law and all that. And they said, yes, well, because the same day Facebook announced that they're not going to allow Taliban to post on their platform and all that. So they reversed the attack, and they attacked Facebook and saying, yes, Facebook does censorship. So, you guys are the real,
That became official. The last I read was that Facebook was considering, wasn't sure.
I feel like
2 days ago,
I don't know. I feel like Facebook has been put in a very tough position now. They don't know what to. It's an odd one.
Because they can take over the former government accounts, right? I mean, once they become government,
official, it's just fascinating. But that's what's been happening. Now we are on third, fourth day of Taliban takeover, and the violence is kind of starting to come up. There were some flag protests. There are reports of shooting. There are reports of killing of family members of some reporters. None of it completely confirmed as of yet, but it's not clear who's in charge who's in charge of Taliban either. There are a number of powerful people, but there are a number of political leaders still in Doha. So it's a bit of a mess. Nobody knows what's going on. And so that I just wanted to have a focus on the events before moving on
some
to
of the
these are the recent events.
Some of the senior leaders are still in Qatar, right? Based on
yes, and even some are, from what I understand, are in Pakistan or were in Pakistan and negotiating with the Pakistani government, because we'll get into all the nitty and gritty, but Pakistan is a key player in this.
100%.
So anything I missed out maybe on the recent events you want to
not that I can think of. Not that I can think of. That sounded about right. That sounded about good as far as I know.
All right. So let's jump into that sort of a timeline thingy. And it's not I wish we had there are these great videos made by gamers on YouTube that they do a timeline of these games that have these sort of unusual storytelling structures. I wish we could do one of those, because they do this timeline and all that. We don't have the graphic or the capacity to do that yet. As of yet, it's going to be a very loose timeline, but let's go through it. So we have the 9/11 attacks, and then following that, perpetrated by Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, and Al-Qaeda is located. Al-Qaeda is basically has safe haven in in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, and they do cooperation together because, like, Al Qaeda used to train Taliban forces and all that. U.S. quickly demands the handover of bin Laden and Al Qaeda forces. Taliban requests to see evidence. U.S. says there is no need for evidence. It's proven and it's obvious. Bin Laden himself has claimed the attack. Taliban is kind of dragging its feet now, but says that yes, we are willing to negotiate and hand him over to a third country that is not under U.S. influence. By the way, references are in the description for this for sure. I think this was covered by The Guardian, if I'm not mistaken. There are also reports. U.S. By the way, U.S. rejects this offer because there are, according to certain leaks, because they want it, according to certain leaks by people who were in the rooms, certain generals, famously, there is this general says that following 9/11, I went into the room and they had a list of countries they wanted to bomb. So US, for one reason or the other, whichever story you want to believe, rejects Taliban's request to get bin Laden through a third country. They start bombing, I think, by October. US invasion starts by October. This is, again, I couldn't find the exact reference for this, but there are, I heard this in by a couple of experts, that by December, Taliban even offers to sort of stand down as the center of power, hand over the power, just stop the bombing and all that. US rejects that, and the invasion is successful. In a sense, the major cities are taken over. It's interesting to point out, with the major help from Iranian forces, who, if you want to check out BBC documentary about that, who pretty much through their allies, the Northern Alliance, they give all the coordinates that US needs for bombings and all that. So invasion is successful. Then there are these conferences, I believe in Germany, I want to say in Bonn, but I'm not sure, about the future of Afghanistan, mostly including people from diaspora, people from former governments and all that. And there is a sort of the votes are equal, like the votes for an Islamic Republic and a monarchy are equal. US intervenes and sort of pushes to have an Islamic Republic have there instead of a monarchy. I think, to be honest, that's one of the key mistakes that US makes. Again, some not just my view, some other analysts like Mr. Nurizadeh agrees there. Well, and then after that, we could go through specific events, but I don't think it's worth it as much. After that, what you have is the short-lived sort of caretaker governments. Then you have Karzai government, which was led by Hamid Karzai, who is still in Afghanistan and is considered a good guy now. At the time, his government was famously corrupt. His brother was one of the people who was majorly involved in heroin and opium trade. There were reports of, bags of money, briefcases of money from like Iranian government, from Russian government, from American government being left in his office. But he was interestingly opposed to he was opposed to American Black Op missions in Afghanistan in the south. He was opposed to continuous drone strikes. And when he left the government, eventually he became the biggest critic of US presence from the liberal side, let's say, from not the Taliban side. And besides Karzai government, what you had was all these local warlords in different regions who were pretty much as bad as Taliban in terms of corruption, in terms of fanaticism. Some of them were as bad as Taliban as well. You had all these reports of heads being cut off, hands being cut off, and then you would have US troops show up And then U.S. troops themselves, majority of killing in Afghanistan was done through air power, to be honest. But majority of killings by soldiers, it seems to have been done by U.S. Forces as well, even more so than Taliban, which is just all of, again, I did give a sort of a warning in the beginning of this. It's not a fun thing if you don't feel good about it. So you have this period of Hamid Karzai, very corrupt government, but there seems to be gains made. By the end of Karzai government, and when this whole sort of corrupt system is sort of entrenched and established, then Taliban is starting to sort of reverse its fortunes. It's trying to regain territory. It's trying to do better and better. And you have, that's why better and better, you have all these new strategies they developed, like they develop like these bombs that are more sophisticated. They go off, in a timely fashion. They're timed, so they go off multiple times. It's gruesome. It's awful. They develop, like the US tries to train Afghan forces, but then Taliban, simply sends one infiltrator, and it's so hard. Afghanistan doesn't have any infrastructure. There is no documentation about people's past and all that. And then after 3 months, after they learn how to use weapons, they turn the weapons and kill Americans and mostly Afghan people. So you had all these events, and so Taliban started to reverse its fortune. And then Obama is in charge now in America, and Americans are more focused on internal issues, economic issues. Then you have this surge. With this surge, they increase the troops. So he pulls out of Iraq. Iraq was the wrong war. Afghanistan was the right war. We are there to find bin Laden, and we haven't found bin Laden. There is the surge. They find bin Laden in Pakistan, living a few miles away from the offices of Pakistani Central Intelligence Agency. And by the way, there are I get into exact quote that highlights my point, that there were evidence from very early on that like by December 2001 or maybe by January 2002, Al-Qaeda forces all had left Afghanistan, except some like ragtag, like some low-level members. So there is the surge. What surge does is, they do push back somewhat against Taliban, but it's a failure overall because American soldiers die and because American generals are extremely incompetent. I mean, David Petraeus, McChrystal, all these people who are made as if they are genuinely Taliban stands for everything that I hate in terms of ideology, but their commanders seem to have been far more competent than the General McChrystals and David Petraeus of this world. Just look at the way how David Petraeus, I don't know, I'm mispronouncing his name, but just look at the way he was turned out. He was basically handling sensitive information with his mistress. We are dealing with children. We are dealing with genuine children. Surge is not successful, and Taliban does not even want to come to the negotiation tables. So what they do is this is where there has been lying and all that all throughout, from the start of the war, but now the lying becomes systematic. They start to redefine measurements. It's easy to, again, creative accounting, as I mentioned on another topic. They use all these methods to justify their lies. For example, the famous one is the one on how you identify somebody as a Taliban member. For example, if two people that lived in that village said that he's a Taliban member, that was enough for that kill to be counted as a not a civilian death, as a enemy combatant death. And I don't know, I feel like I have many people in Tehran that don't like me, and I'm sure they're willing to say a lot of things about me to have me blown up. So, so the surge is not successful. Trump comes in, then, and Trump's strategy is that, okay, we're not going to have so much American soldiers killed. We're just going to bomb the shit out of them. And it's caused far more deaths than previous strategy, but at the same time, to an extent it worked. It brought the Taliban to the negotiation table, although Taliban refused to negotiate with the officially internationally recognized Afghan government. And I talked about Karzai government, but I forgot to talk about Ghani government, which is Obama-Trump years. Ghani government came through power through an election. His main opponent was Abdullah, who's still in Afghanistan. And it's important to point out, in terms of tribal politics of Afghanistan, just to give a very, very, very brief overview. You have the Pashtun people who are connected to Pakistan and Pashtun are probably the most powerful group. You have what are called, and I say that very reluctantly, Tajik speakers. I prefer to say Persian speakers. And they are another big segment of Afghanistan, and mostly focused in the north. You have the Hazara people who are they overlap with the Tajik people, and they are Shia or similar to Shia faith. So you have this, and there are so many other tribes, by the way, but these are the big players. Ashraf Ghani comes from the Pashtu politics. Although he's from Afghani diaspora community, I believe he worked in the World Bank and IMF. So he was a corrupt global technocrat. And on his corruption, there was no doubt from beginning. Everybody knew, it was discussed widely. Pretty much everybody believes. I don't have any hard evidence for this. There was a lot of evidence going around at the time. But his first election, he was most likely elected in a rigged election because Americans. Again, he was America's guy. And remember that, because that comes into play when we come to end of this discussion. I think he was America's guy, and Abdullah was viewed as the guy because he's a Persian speaker, because he's a Tajik speaker. His mother is Tajik, even though I think his father may be actually Pashto, because he was connected to Ahmad Shah Massoud, who was the leader of Northern Alliance, who was a freedom fighter who fought Taliban. Because of all those things, Americans didn't want him, because he wasn't their guy in a way. By the way, not probably just Americans, Pakistanis, a lot of different groups. So he came to power in a very, very suspicious election, and his government from very beginning, very corrupt. Within 3 years, pretty much anybody who you could say was a Afghani official that was actually competent or was not fully corrupt, or until his eye level, deep in corruption, just until his, let's say, neck or something in corruption, had left Ghani's government. And Ghani went into coalition with some of the most gruesome people. It's just the level of warlords got even worse. You had people like General Dostum come in, who are, awful track record of, torture, sexual misconduct. You had Hakim Gulbatyar, who, by the way, kudos to him. He was more of a man than Ashraf Ghani. I mean, I would say he's more of a man because he's basically Taliban. Hikmet he's the head of the Islamist party in the Afghanistan parliament, and he would have people flogged. This is in 1990s. He would have people flogged for outside of Kabul. And by the way, this idea that Kabul had university before Tehran. Kabul University is older than Tehran University. So this idea that like this is something in their culture, or it's like this was they are reactionaries that pushed a society back. Anyways, so Ghani went into coalition with this kind of people. Although what Ghani was also he kept a very close clique of young people, mostly diaspora, close to him, and he was just the most corrupt, technocratic, just empty talks, very, very worst. But he had to, in the end, he had to enter sort of a power sharing thing with Abdullah. Second, there was his second term as a president, same problems, rigged elections. This time even more obvious. Again, he had to go into a power sharing thing with Abdullah, and just awful. His main focus was getting closer to America and India. That was his main foreign policy. He kind of alienated Iran to an extent. He tried to cozy up to like Arab nations, and somewhat successfully he did. And now, by the way, he's in UAE. So his government was a complete failure, and was a result of America's focus on try to basically accommodate the Pashtun, who, by the way, Pashtun are also a very important force in Pakistani politics. In a way, a lot of people see Taliban as an outgrowth of Pashtuns' political will to incorporate Afghanistan into Pakistan. So, by the way, all I'm saying are different interpretations. I don't subscribe to any of them because I don't know enough about the evidence, but I'm just giving you a bit of an overview of different things. And I'm going to mention some of the professors and all that they talk about this, but it's just because most of it is in Persian. I don't want to, it's just, it would be pointless at this point. And let me give you a major example of Ghani's, for example, corruption thing. In the last year of Ghani's government, you had a situation where they claimed to have a 300,000 man army. According to most reports and according to leaks, at least 200,000 of them were ghosts. So they would write names. Yeah, they would write names, get the money for them, get the equipment for them that they could sell in the black market. But then you had Afghani soldiers because Afghanistan is it's a mountainous country, hard to reach different places, even close places and all that. And you had Afghani soldiers starving to death. You had Afghani soldiers boiling their shoes to feed themselves. Afghani soldiers that, by the way, now Biden is saying when Afghanistan are not willing to fight for their country. Well, have you boiled your own shoe to eat it? Anyways, who puts the Ghani government in charge? Who was the biggest backer of Ghani? While a lot of people, including Russians and Iranians, were somewhat suspicious of him because he was such a American technocrat. Not that, by the way, Russians or Chinese or Iranians wanted Afghanistan to be better. It was just he was such a incompetent, corrupt idiot. But anyway, so let me now. About America's, the fact that America was lying. I mentioned that Americans were lying. They were fiddling the numbers. Let me just give you this quote from The Atlantic. And The Atlantic is not I'm sorry, I'm just looking for this quote, but I can't find it. I hope I haven't.
I don't see it in your notes.
No.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, it's in an updated version. I found
Okay.
it. The Atlantic is not some left-wing publication. I believe David Frum one of them probably, what would you describe him as? The I don't know, the representatives of the underworld. I don't know. One of the ambassadors from hell, David Frum, the speechwriter of George Bush, the man who came up with the axis of evil thing. A man so empty of anything. Like, he writes for the Atlantic, I believe. So I don't think this is some left-wing publication.
Yeah.
But this is not from him. But the publication, I just want to point out, is not some like radical organization. So, quoting the Atlantic, based on they're talking about a Washington Post expose that's coming out as a book very soon. That's about secret documents regarding American involvement in Afghanistan. The quote: based on the trenches of thousands of documents obtained by the Post in litigation, as well as some previously released memos, the report shows that for nearly 2 decades, American leaders, Democrat and Republican, civilian and military, elected, appointed, and career civil servants have lied to us about how the war in Afghanistan is going the Atlantic. So again, Democrat and Republican, civilian and military, elected and appointed. So don't people who want to focus the blame on Pentagon, to people who want to focus the blame on Republicans, don't. I don't think, yeah, that's, you should have a larger view. Yeah, it's pretty much. Now, so, I mean, I hope I gave let me give just at the end, again, a bit more details and minutiae for people who are interested on what's been happening right now. So I gave the sort of a timeline of what happened, and then US government has started negotiating with the Taliban, and sort of, that's true, by the way. US government undermined Afghanistan, the internationally recognized government, although I would say their own corruption also undermined themselves. So everybody's a bad guy. And by negotiating with Taliban, they undermine the government, and then by clearly not having a plan, allowed Taliban to easily take over the whole country. Although, again, I would say, when you look at these documents, and I looked at some of them from Washington Post, it seems they had no options. They were bleeding ground for the last 3 years. And yeah, some like there was this peace negotiator today on Guardian saying that if America stayed for another month, there would have been peace. But from when you look at this peace in terms of peaceful handover and all that, so I don't want to minimize anything because I haven't looked at all the evidence, but they were bleeding ground for a long time, and it seems like Taliban were understanding that they had the upper hand now. So, and America was worried that if they truly understand that they have the upper hand, there will be a massacre, both of Afghans and Americans. And while Afghans can be massacres, Americans sadly cannot. Fortunately, at least Americans cannot. But Afghans, you know, they're fine. I'm being sarcastic, by the way, and ironic if anybody doesn't understand this. Ghani, until the last day, Ashraf Ghani was saying that people should call the police and report cases of violence. I mean, this man, anyway.
But apparently,
and then, no, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just gonna ask you, when they count, like you said, you know, there were 3,000 army members, but, you know, some of them were like, they didn't even exist or ghosts. But sometimes I hear they like add up the police and the army together. Have you heard them say it that way? They're like, like 300,000.
Yes. No, 300,000 is police and army, but it's not bad though. It's not even if you, like, that's bigger than like if that number was real, that's bigger than a lot of armies.
But
and they had good equipment.
Adding the police and the army together. I mean,
the thing is, they were technically fighting terrorism, so police
Okay.
comes into that. So again, like still though, still I know what you mean. It's a it's a bit like there are two different forces with two different set of activities. But yeah, still though, it's far more than what Taliban had. Anyways,
But Taliban, they say 200,000, right? Forces right now, like give or take, or
I
does that
think
not
so.
make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. I think so. I don't know. I think
I mean, yes.
less.
Okay.
I don't know. But anyways, sorry. Yes, Ashraf Ghani. And then, as Taliban were at the gates, Ashraf Ghani disappeared. He just disappeared. No, he didn't even tell his vice president, Amrullah Saleh, who I don't think he's doing a right thing by continuing. He said the war is not over and all that. But he does seem to be he seems to be a genuine man, at least, although I don't know much about him. But I think if he continues on his way, he will not have a beautiful end. But Ashraf Ghani and a close clique of him, including his head of security and another person whose position escapes my mind, the top of the head of the snake of corruption, the head of the swamp, ran away. For 2 days, nobody knew where he was. There were reports he was in Tajikistan or somewhere else. It turned out he went to UAE with his family and got diplomatic immunity, and then released the video saying that I left to avoid bloodshed, further bloodshed, specifically mine. And then on social media, Afghanistani people and Iranian people, everybody, even American, everybody pretty much destroyed him. Everybody is very angry. The ambassador, I mean, I don't know if everybody's a former now or actually has the position, but the former or current ambassador to Tajikistan, Afghanistan ambassador to Tajikistan, among many others, among former cabinet members, called for Ashraf Ghani to be put on trial for corruption, for betraying the nation. Abdullah and Hamid Karzai, I would say, were genuinely, they are, I don't know how they're keeping it together, because in their video they said we just leave his judgment to the people and to God. And they are right now. Hamid Karzai, again, somebody who was corrupt, and his brother was corrupt. Everybody knows all of this. But Hamid Karzai, there were 6 assassination attempts on him by Taliban. I think there is a video footage of him. Abdullah, one time Taliban tried to assassinate him when he was giving a speech, like twice, like in an event, and now they stayed in, and they are doing negotiations with the people who tried to kill them and their family members. Yeah. While Ashraf Ghani, who was a technocrat from World Bank, has just ran away. Anyway, just shows, and then he was America's guy. And then America says, yeah, Afghani leadership has betrayed the Afghani people. Who put that leadership in? It's just, I'm reaching the level of cognitive dissonance that I think my head is just gonna split open.
I heard that there was this lady on TV. I believe she was like the head of education ministry, and she was like, yeah, I can't believe that Ashraf Ghani has left. He had told me numerous times that he's not going to leave the country and stuff. I was like, I hope you're not actually that naive and you're just saying this because it goes with the narrative. But
when you're in, I don't know if she was in Afghanistan or not. Was she in Afghanistan or
I believe
she was.
I believe she was. I'm not 100% sure also that she was Ministry of Education.
I suppose in those situations, you don't have the luxury of not believing, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, he escaped, and now Hamid Karzai and Abdullah are staying to negotiate, handover, whatever is going on. Let's get into nitty-gritty. Taliban is being conciliatory, and what do I mean by that? They left the diplomatic missions alone. The first official they met was the Russian ambassador
Mhm.
They met with Chinese authorities. They have, in both cases, they provided assurances that Afghanistan will not become a safe haven for terrorism. China and Russia are very worried about that. China and Russia have terrorist organizations that have very strong connections to Afghanistan through Central Asia. Central Asia is not a very, the national identities there have not been formed as strongly, and Islamic identity is very strong there, and Russia and China have both, everybody knows about Chechnya, and
Yeah.
even before that, Russian Soviet involvement in Afghanistan, China with the Uyghur population. So we'll go back to China at some point. They also provided Iranian authorities with assurances that there's not gonna be any attacks on Iranian diplomats. However, they have not yet commented on Hazara community or Shia community, which is not getting. I love how, I mean, just the Shias seem to be listed. I mean, even on the left, they care about Muslims, but not Shias. Like Shias are just, who cares? And last time Taliban was in power, they were the ones that were pretty much the actions that were committed against them were genocidal. I mean, I'm somewhat, I don't want to, it was mass murder to be specific, because they weren't killed because of their race, but for the way Taliban views them is that it's not like you chose to be a Shia. You were born to be a Shia. So even if you say, no, I want to convert to you, whatever you guys say, it's like, no, you have to die. You had the first appearance of their Taliban leader, whose name escapes my, Mullah something. This is an important thing though, I'll get back to that. You had, no, let me actually I'll get back to it right now. I think I just wanted to, that's where we are right now. So Taliban is pretending that they're going to be a good international player, although violence has broken out. Now I want to give a bit of an explanation of my own. This is my own thinking. Taliban is not a centralized force, and one of the reasons they kept their leaders hidden was because they are not a centralized force, and they're held together by lack of explanation. If you leave all these empty gaps, each group or each tiny resistant group can fill it in with their own wants and needs, right? It's like a Rorschach painting. Political movements, especially on the rise, should be it's a broad church, and all Taliban that we knew till now was only held together through their opposition to the US and to a lesser extent to Northern Alliance and all those groups. Now, I don't think even they know what the fuck is going on. There is no, I don't think the people in Doha, I don't think the people in the ARC, in the Citadel in Afghanistan, I don't think either of them have full control over their forces. I think there is a good chance that the fact that they are being conciliatory could be used by another radical Afghan group to have a coup and push them aside. At the same time, I do think that now that they're in power, now that there is a tiny border between Afghanistan and China, and that could become a corridor for pretty much unimaginable wealth for these people, for the people who end up, controlling that gate that will be China's gate through Afghanistan to Pakistan, which would be hugely important for China as it tries to encircle India and completely marginalize India. So, there is no, it's kind of like some Iranian people were comparing it to Iranian revolution, in my view, in a very idiotic manner. But the reality, there is a similarity, and wherever there is a power vacuum and there is a new group that is coming to power, or look at the French Revolution, look at the Russian Revolution, not so much Cuban one, because that I would argue is more of a that's more of an imperial type thing. It's not an internal revolution. In these revolutions, even people, people are not preformed, they are formed while they are in power, while they are trying to, a movie I highly suggest is Death of Stalin. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's a comedy movie. And look at that. Look at how Khrushchev, following the death of Stalin, goes from the reformer to the reactionary, to the conservative. And Briahna, the head of KGB, Stalin, Briahna, the most gruesome man in Stalin's union, goes from the conservative reactionary to the reformist. Power and power plays will change people. So I don't think, like, Taliban is saying this stuff and people say, but they're lying and stuff. I don't think they know what they're saying. I don't think they are in charge. Nobody's in charge now, although I do hope, because the civil war between American forces and Afghan forces have stopped with Taliban, we'll see less major killings. We'll probably, my guess is, brutalities will start. We'll see more oppression. We'll see more conflicts at a state repression level. But thankfully, less people might die in terms of war. So yeah, that was my analysis. Now, okay, so let's go to the. I can start with reactions, and then we go to the coverage. So I think Biden remarks were, to be honest, I think removal of American forces from removal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan was a good thing, but his remarks and the way he justified them was, in my view, disgusting, and just showed. I mean, look, everybody just cares about themselves and their own country, but just the blatant way he put it, and the way he put the blame on Afghani leadership and Afghani people not being willing to fight for themselves, not as if, I mean, who was in charge for the last 20 years? I mean, I was listening to Chapo Trap House about this, and they made a great point in a comedic fashion. It's really weird. We went to a country and we hand selected and appointed every members of the leadership, and after 20 years they're all corrupt pedophiles. How did that happen? What a surprise. Who did that? It's disgusting. He's disgusting, I think. And again, I'm somebody who thinks, like, if they stayed 1 month longer or 10 years longer, probably nothing would have changed, because they don't have the political will to do anything. But to put it this way, to make these remarks and to not even answer the questions about the fact that you couldn't even sort out the people who worked for you, the translators, the Afghani people who will probably, for one reason or another, will be tortured or killed, or anyways.
Yeah, I mean, Biden has kind of been, that's been his approach even since the campaign, right? I mean, like, the answers and stuff, he was just like giving them. He didn't care how
the reporters specifically asked about about the evacuation. You fucked that up. That's not like that has nothing to do with the 20-year war or whatever. Can't you plan evacuation? What are you? I mean, we know you're a senile old man, but
but we even covered that story. Remember when they first left, and they left the airbase like 3 months ago, and they didn't notify the Afghanis, and then people just came and like looted the base and all this. The Afghanistan commander like found out 2 hours later that the Americans had packed up and left.
And now CNN and Guardian are reporting that American officials are so worried that if these weapons are going to the hand of Chinese government, oh my God, it's just Jesus Christ. Boris Johnson was equally disgusting. Well, no, he was a slightly better. I think, no, genuinely, Boris Johnson, European Parliament question, like Keir Starmer, I hate the guy, but he at least talked about evacuation. But I would say they at least paid some lip service to the people of Afghanistan, unlike Biden, who just said, no, it's the fault of Afghani people that we spent 20 years destroying their country. Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer both, paid more lip service. So German officials, Macron also was a bit, I don't know, Macron was closer to Trump, I think, in his remarks. Although I can understand French, so maybe it was a translation issue. The coverage was fascinating. American news coverage largely focused on American lives lost, American money lost.
Yeah, the money.
The thing I found, I get back to this, but they kept mentioning the $2 trillion, which is like, I found that so disgusting. Again, over 20 years, you spent $2 trillion in a country that is as big as most of your states, and you feel like and most of that $2 trillion, where did it go? Raytheon and
exactly.
Other arm producers. Jesus Christ.
That's the money spent. What about the revenue or the income and all that?
I mean, I can't believe I spent $100 beating the shit out of that guy. I should have done it. Anyways, European coverage was mostly focused on the evacuation, and Germany had done a terrible job. France had done a terrible. Germany, I think, at some point had only gotten out 6 people. UK the same. It was, at least with the European thing, there seemed to be acknowledgement that, like America, left, we are nobodies. At least we could have done a better evacuation. But it seems American and Europeans, because they didn't want to admit that they've lost the war. They didn't want to tell anybody till last moment. And that's why the evacuation tragedy happened. Iran, China, and Russia were obviously somewhat jovial, you could argue, and saying that, America, although I would say Iranian coverage was more focused on the tragedy, especially because refugees started coming in. Iran has already set up 4 refugee camps on the borders with Afghanistan. And, it's, like refugees coming from a country that is, Afghanistan, for most of its history, has been part of Iran. They speak the same language. They share the same stories. We share the same TV, even though it's fucked up. It's like
BBC Persia, right? It covers Iran and
BBC Persia now has more Afghan anchors than Iranian, so it's fucked up.
It seems like it's related to your previous point. It seems like all the European leaders who are in power, like Boris Johnson, they know that they can't stay back or do anything, but it's like Keir Starmer who was saying, like, NATO should stay back, or like British troops should stay back. I was kind of hearing. So, I mean, those who are in power, they know that they can't do absolutely anything without the Americans.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they don't even mention things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, watch our videos about UK politics. I hate the man. But he made a good point that at least for the last 2 months, they had known about the plan to evacuate. So, it's just the lack of planning is...
Keir Starmer was saying that.
Yeah, I think so.
But I mean, all analysts that went on TV, though, even the past 2 to 3 months, they were like, yes, of course, Taliban is going to take over easily and stuff, but not Kabul. That's going to...
No, but if you look at it, everybody, I mean, come on. No, I thought so. And I think most people who really looked at the thing, that was TV people saying that. I think I admit I didn't even think it's going to happen in 10 days. I thought it's going to take 3 weeks. But what like, of course they're going to take over. Well, I don't know. Anyway. But yeah, so let me get into some more. So now this was the coverage. Now let's get to international reactions, as in like country like official reactions. Europe has said they are not going to recognize Taliban, and Taliban said, "Oh no, really? How can I sleep tonight?" Nobody cares, and they're going to recognize Taliban in a couple of. It's like Trump, and it's just they talk shit, but they are nothing.
Yeah.
They have no independence. They have no army, so they should just shut the fuck up sometimes. Say it's a tragedy and move on. Canada, Justin Trudeau saw an opportunity to again, promote himself on social media. So he released a video on TikTok saying that Canada has never recognized Taliban and will never do so. Again, I'm sure Taliban is. I'm sure as soon as Taliban has enough money to buy weapons from them, they will recognize them. No worries. Russians, as I met, they've already met with some Taliban leaders. Before even Taliban took over Kabul, they already bolstered their border security in Tajikistan. It's weird. Russia provides border security for some of former Soviet countries like Turkmenistan and Tajikistan. So they bolster border securities there. They're very worried about terrorism. But they have recognized the Taliban is in charge. Chinese officials have met with Taliban and have recognized that they have taken over. Again, they're worried about terrorism, as mentioned before. Iranian officials have met with Taliban before and after the takeover now, very worried about Shia minority. And as I mentioned, we are already setting up camps. There are reports that Iran has established contact with Hazara communities, and Hazara communities already has formed its own militias in Kabul and other cities. Iran, in a way, Iran long-term is, we'll get to the big losers and winners as well, but this is not good for Iran overall. US, as we mentioned, Biden blames the Afghan officials and people. George Bush and John Bolton came out of woodwork to say that the withdrawal was a mistake. Obviously, Pakistanis are very much trying to hide their glee. I mean, again, Omar Khan, somebody who I thought may become a potentially positive figure for Pakistan. I mean, he seems to have completely capitulated to the Pakistani army, and he talked about Afghani people they have broken the chain of slavery, but they're still mentally. I found this. I don't know what he was talking about, but I found it somewhat offensive. Maybe it wasn't though. Maybe I don't understand his reference point. But yeah, Pakistani officials are a bit trying to hide their glee. But Pakistani army is basically, they're having, I assume it's a 24/7 party right now. Their long-term dream has pretty much come to fruition. India is very worried. They've issued, they're trying to pull out their people. They're Indian. I watched a lot of the print and other Indian content, and some official even described it as a Pakistani invasion of Afghanistan, not Taliban takeover. They feel like they lost a major bet. They invested heavily in Ashraf Ghani and his projects and Afghanistan, they were trying to strangulate Pakistan and all that. And yeah, again, we'll come back to the big winners and losers. Saudi Arabia, UAE, and an Arab border actually very worried as well. They sort of, following the invasion, they sort of threw their lot in with Ashraf Ghani and Americans, and now Taliban is back. So they have their old connections, but they're very worried as well, because Taliban is closer. Taliban, you could argue, has sort of an Akhwan segment, which is Muslim Brotherhood segment, and Salafi segment, which are the religious hardcore people. So they are very worried about the Muslim Brotherhood segment, and Taliban has a better relationship with Qatar. So UAE is worried about that. Turkey is probably again one of the winners. They sort of have good relations with, sort of democratic Islamic groups like Muslim Brotherhoods, and they're Sunni. And the Turkish media is very worried, and Daily Sabah was very major Turkish newspaper was very negative, but Erdogan himself is pushing to have talks with Taliban leaders. And these are been the global reactions that I thought worth mentioning. What the situation is evolving, I would imagine maybe Turkey's meeting right now with Taliban leaders and all that. Anything else on international reactions I could add, or you want to add?
No, not anything countries that I can think of. You've gone over all the main ones, yeah.
All right. So now I just want to, before I go into my own analysis, I just wanted to mention some of the name of professors that informed and some of the contents that informed our video. Novaro Media had a couple of fantastic, I think, debates. I think they had great analysts, Paul Rogers, Antoine Lieven. They had a couple of people who, in my opinion, have no expertise besides being of Afghani diaspora. And I don't think that makes you an expert, and makes like they claim Iranian and Pakistani support for Taliban. And again, if you put that in a context, sure, everybody deals with Taliban, but like it's just they also had idiots on as well. Iranian channels, BBC Persia and Iran International. Iran International is a channel I've been critical a lot. It's funded by Saudi Arabia, by Mohammed bin Salman's right-hand man, and it's really bad usually on Iran. But in my view, they did a fantastic job.
Oh, really?
On Afghanistan, and there's a lady presenter, her name escapes my mind. She did a fantastic job. The links are in the description if anybody speaks Persian or stuff. They on debate they had, I think partially it's because Iranian diaspora, liberal or educated, whatever community, is very limited, so they have to have good people on. So you had Mr. Nurizadeh, who I mentioned, somebody I agree with on most issues, gave great analysis. Mr. Atabaki, Iranian historian, historical sociologist, fantastic. Again, all these people I disagree with on a lot of issues. Dr. Sabeti, Iranian, I think he's a philosopher and spiritual studies PhD. Again, somebody I completely agree with on everything, but he made fantastic points. So, and Professor Soltani, he's Afghani professor. There's a lot of content of him online, and he's fantastic. He's a left-wing Afghani professor, I would describe him as. So check out all these people if you can, obviously. And before I get to my own personal analysis and talks with you, I forgot something, which is very important, which is I wanted to give a bit of the Afghan view. I have not carried out a survey. I have I'm just going by what I've just anecdotes and the coverage I've seen. From what we see so far, it seems that the diaspora community is completely shocked and disgusted by US withdrawal and very upset by Taliban takeover. That is very natural because the diaspora community generally come from the people who are mostly hurt by Taliban, their actions, such. Afghani Afghanistani people who live in cities are also seem to be the biggest losers of this. People who had to work for their livelihood, had to work for U.S. government or foreign government, and now are worried about their future, worried about their families, worried about people are describing cities as dead cities. There are no women around. A lot. I wouldn't allow my family members to go out in such a situation. Then, on a more positive, hopeful side, you have the view of rural communities and people on rural areas,
which make up, if
who
I'm not
see,
mistaken, 60% or so of the population now in Afghanistan.
I think so, yes. And they are more hopeful that there will be less bombings, less air strikes, less drones, and less even less raids by Taliban or American forces, which is natural because the war is over. So yeah, that's I thought it's. I mean, again, I haven't, and I don't think anyone has clear view of what majority or Afghanistani people think about, but these were views that I came across and I thought are worth highlighting, because those are the views that really matter in the end. And all the thing we talk about is happening to these people,
Yeah,
not
definitely.
to us, not to Americans. So yeah. So that's about it. And now I kind of wanted to get a bit to my own as usual, negative and probably wrong take. I don't know if you want to add something before that about the realities and what's
No,
going
no,
on.
no. Yeah, no, go ahead. Just that, like
Go ahead, sorry.
No, just sometimes some of like the diaspora, you especially hear on the media, but they're like the most affected. So like sometimes I feel like their takes appear to be like some of the more like, I don't say naive, but like naive, or they're like, oh yeah, why didn't the US do this or stay over? But like you feel because they are just so directly impacted by that, they can't really think or say any different
No,
way.
that's the thing though. I used to think that those people are maybe more naive, but then again, I'm an idiot, so I take my philosophy from shitty movies. There's this movie Sicario, a spoiler warning, and it's about the fact that in the end the bad guy, the head of the cartel, says, who do you think we learned all these like torture and killings from? We learned them from you, from US government, from Colombian governments, we learned it from you, because he had murdered his wife and children. And the guy just looks at him, Benicio del Toro, and says, I know. He says, oh, it's not personal, and he says, I know, it's personal to me.
Yeah.
And so while I do think, yes, I maybe in larger scale of things they are naive, but it's personal to them. So
yeah.
fair enough.
And I think in Novaro Media, one of them tells like one of the analysts that we mentioned, I think it's Anton Lieven.
No, I did Antoine Liev, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, one of them where he tells them, oh, you're talking in such an academic way. And the guy wasn't talking in an academic way, really. He was more talking in an analyst
journal
kind of. Yeah,
exactly.
He was fully removed, kind of, He was fully removed.
That my veiled criticism was, as that guy Passardai, if I'm not mistaken, he moved abroad from Afghanistan in 2005, I believe, when he was 12. He helps with Afghani things. And yeah, it's just, yes, because again, yes, we are talking about this as analysts, because can you hear me?
Yeah.
My battery is very low, so I'll just mention that, and then we give a slight break so I can have water, and then I come back to my analysis as well. But yeah, I think we are not involved. This is not personal to us.
Yeah.
And it's happening to Afghani people, and yeah, that's true. But yeah, that doesn't make our views less valid or anything.
No, yeah.
Anyway, I'm just gonna we are more careful about our mistakes. So okay, now let's, in this segment, basically I wanted to discuss issues, and because these issues there is no real answer. It's just going to be our takes rather than realities and all that. But there were a couple of things I wanted to discuss. So, who are the losers and winners of what just happened? Do you have any opinions on that?
I think you should get started, and then we'll see if I have any.
Okay, sure.
Because I don't want to go back all the way to the beginning and say, like if the Americans stayed longer, it would have been the same thing. These things have kind of been said and all that.
Of course. So I think the real answer is we will see. But in a way, you could say the real winner right now is Pakistan, because they managed to have a Pashtun supported government instilled in Afghanistan. And the biggest loser is India, because they invested so heavily and they lost so much. Now, besides losers and winners, let's just go on how does it play out for different players. If Afghanistan in a way, America could be the biggest winner here. If America starts to support Taliban, if they actually fund them and support them, they can have another basically Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, a sort of a semi-satellite state in their hand, in which they use to foment chaos and instability in China and Russia and Iran. So if this is like, in a way, if this is the long-term play of America, which in my view could be, this is perfect move. Taliban is on your side, and it's got the perfect location and geography to be used against China, Russia, Iran. So that's one way things could go. At the same time, China is trying to increasingly push to Afghanistan to encircle India to get further access to Pakistan and Iran. And we've discussed this in our previous videos. China and India are in this major rivalry, and China doesn't have access to seas and open waters as much, and India can block Chinese exports that go through Indian Ocean. So for again, if Taliban goes towards the Chinese thing, then America would become the biggest loser, as well as India, and Iran would benefit somewhat. But another potential possibility is that Taliban will go towards America, or maybe even Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar camp, and or Pakistani camp to an extent, and it becomes a major issue for Iran. I mean, before America invaded in 2001, I believe in 2000 or 2001, Taliban attacked Iranian border towns. They killed Iranian diplomats, and Iran, like India, had invested a lot of money in Afghanistan during the last 20 years. So, all that is gone potentially if Taliban goes towards Americans and Arabic countries. So all these things basically, are potential scenarios that come to my mind, and could happen. So I don't know. I just wanted to discuss. Do you think any one of them is more likely than the other? Or by the way, Afghanistan just could descend into a civil war, and yeah.
No, but that's a great point about the US. And I mean, their main concern remains really Russia, China, and Iran. So, I mean, that's huge. And the whole fact, and I guess that's kind of not talked about much. So I'm glad you brought that up about China's concern about India, which is, I don't know if mainstream media really talks about that or puts an emphasis on that. So that's great that you brought that up.
Yeah, and India is concerned about China.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Okay, no, just yeah, I don't know which scenario is more likely, but to be honest, if I had to bet, I would say Taliban would go towards US because they have more money, and money usually trumps everything. So we'll see. But at the same time, the Chinese have been pretty good in providing money in certain cases. So
Yeah.
we'll see. And oh, for example, I just wanted to, and then I wanted to get into a debate about. Oh, sorry. First, let me say this, and then we get to our big debate. Like one of the reasons why I said Iran International did a great job, the host, she made this because she comes from a far more liberal like predisposition than us. And she made this point, which I found great. She said, how could anybody trust Americans? They abandoned they Carter abandoned Shah in during Iranian Revolution. Americans abandoned Kurds in Syria, and now abandoning Afghani government in Afghanistan. And I think while like you shouldn't try, like politics is not about trust and who's your friend or anything, but she's reflecting a real shift in the global middle class that I think America is. This was even more than maybe Trump. This was damaging to their because it just comes as at the end of as a culmination of so many things that I think the global middle class, if in my view, it's a good thing, is losing its faith in America and its powers and its values and all that. Like they're seeing the real picture. So, and I think she was right about all those things. So yeah, I thought that's like that seems to be like if you want to, it reminded me like when I was studying, we did history of World War I and World War II, and the idea was that how did the international rules and regulations broke down so much that people just started attacking another countries and grabbing land and all that. And people would blame this dictator or that dictator, but the reality was, and it seems to be, is that it's the international country, the superpowers, the biggest countries that break international law themselves. They undermine it so much, and then at some point it reaches a tipping point and it just collapses. And I feel like we just got closer to that tipping point. I mean, it's just US has pretty much any deal they've made they went back on. So that's another point I wanted to make.
That's true, but I guess the point that you made first about sure, if they break their promises and all that, people say this now, but they can easily reverse that down the line with money and media and short-term memory and everything.
Yeah, but look, there is a thing about America's soft power. Like nobody, my professor once at university made this point. Nobody goes buys a T-shirt with, like rarely it happens with like Bolivian. You know what I mean? Like they buy American, or socks that has American flag on it. So I think that's going away. It's a good thing. I think they're growing up. They're realizing that it's not like they kept thinking America is this sort of good policeman of the world, and now they're realizing no.
You hope so,
yeah, I hope so.
Sorry,
at least this lady in this interview.
Yeah, you hope so, but even now people are still saying, oh, maybe the Americans should have stayed longer and they could have done better, or they could have withdrawn better. So even within this situation,
I think they could have withdrawn better.
Yeah.
No, they could. Let's now I wanted to get to this debate because I thought you would probably disagree with me there, because I heard all these stuff about the left that like there was nothing we could do. You cannot reflect the word in your image. What do they say? It's a saying thing. And all that. And no, this is not some philosophical or some rocket science or some really complex issue about understanding the culture of Afghani tribes. It's about money. Americans weren't willing to spend money, and the money they spent, they were siphoning it out to their own companies, and or the Afghani officials that were paid were all the money ended up in UAE and India and all these Singapore, all these tax havens. So this I'm sorry, but I don't believe in this sort of fundamental belief that we shouldn't intervene and we shouldn't try to change the world. Of course we should, but we should do it with plans and with proper amount of resources. They spent $2 trillion in 20 years and they think they've done so much. You know, they think, oh, $2 trillion of American taxpayers.
I mean, not that it makes a difference, but sorry, it's the figure that they throw around 2 or 3 trillion.
I heard on one shot 2, I think. Maybe it was 3.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Maybe I was. You're absolutely right. Oh yeah, it's when they say 300 million a day. Sorry, that's where I got the confusion.
As if, by the way, Afghanistani people ask them to do that. Like nobody asked you to spend that money.
And the money was spent.
It's just so, and it's nothing. They look at. I went and checked that the budget for one U.S. state for 1 year is like just less than $1 billion.
Yeah.
One state in US, a state that is developed, that already has infrastructures, airports, and you think you did a good job? Again, they shouldn't have invaded. If you don't have the money, if you don't have the guts, if you don't have the will, don't do it. Yeah. But don't say that it's about the culture of Afghanistan, graveyard of empires. Nobody can do. Fuck you. They're reducing the just when it comes to the East, people of the East, as if they're aliens or something. But if you build schools, if you build roads, if you put non-corrupt politicians in charge, Afghani people would reject it.
And that's the thing. I mean, I don't think they've spent any money on building anything. I mean, I can't remember who was talking about some small clinics here and there, but no, bridges, this kind, which can still be done for selfish ideas. I mean, you hear that about Africa, and that the Chinese, they spend their money and they build infrastructure. They do it for selfish ways, but I mean, it's still better than perhaps bombing.
Yeah, when you spend most of your money on consultants that consult each other on how better to run businesses, or on imaginary products that will never be bought, or the money ends up going back to the US. Just there are, by the way, loads of videos. I thought it's not even worth mentioning. There are loads of videos comparing Soviet Union presence 9 years to American presence, their legacy, these guys' legacy, in terms of just building
like some infrastructure and things here and there. Yeah.
Even women education.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, less than 1/3 of, after 20 years, less than 1/3 of Afghan women are educated. Less than 1/3 after 20 years of, I mean, now we know because of secret documents that 80% of the country was under Taliban control anyway. So.
Yeah, I know Phyllis Bennis does a great job in the analysis news, and she points out that yes, in Kabul and then in Parliament. Yeah, go ahead. I was just saying, in the Parliament and stuff, you do see there's some women that were, joined the Parliament and all this, but when you look at in the rural areas, those kind of progresses don't seem to have happened.
So I thought I'm going to get some pushback from you on my whole like money thing, and you're going to be a bit more of a usual leftist. So that didn't work out. So I'll move on to my second contagious point. Maybe, I hope I get some pushback on this. It's kind of a two-parter. First of all, that complement, I hope and I think each other. And again, I'm not sure about any of my views and all that. One is, I think the left doesn't like.
What do you mean by the left? You're sorry. By the left, you're talking about liberals?
Liberals in the US.
Okay.
Liberals in the US, but no, left people who are actually socialists, let's say.
Okay.
Even people talk about Afghanistan, or anywhere, like about change in our society. They don't seem to, like, when I read Marx, one of the great things I loved about him was that he seemed to provide a historical materialism, which was a step-by-step process towards a post-scarce society in which an ideal organization could be reached, right? Like you had to go through capitalism, and one of the major criticism of Soviet Union was that, and not criticism, one of the major reasons why they said it failed was that because it went from feudalism to capitalism without the whole, without communism, without the capitalism, and without bourgeoisie being really truly developed and all that. So you see people keep talking about there should be, legitimate government chosen by the democratic people, and people of Afghanistan should. Who are the people of Afghanistan? The nation of Afghanistan, all societies are imagined societies, but the nation of Afghanistan is still in the process of the imagination. It's not even imagined fully. So, and I just don't think we can have that. We can have democracy even at a very limited way until there is a strong centralized state. Some things are established, and then you have and I don't even mean like a couple of years. I mean like a class of people formed that can participate and can do, or diaspora comes back, and then you move on to new things. So this kind of relates to, for example, there was Stephen Colbert pointed this out, and I thought he did, after many years, he did a real good job in his segment. He pointed out that there was above 70% or 75% support for the invasion of Afghanistan, and now there is above 70 or 75% support for the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And you see democracy or will of the people, not that, by the way, like everything people of America want gets done, but I'm using this example, and I know it's not a example that is appropriate for all occasions, but I just want to point out that people are not ready for democracy, and people, especially when it comes to important decisions like economy, war, invading country, things like that, I don't think having them involved, not, by the way, because they're bad or anything, it's just because people like Paul Wolfowitz or Rumsfeld or these Cheneys, they can manipulate people so easily by scaring them, by lying to them. Right now, media is focused on bad. Taliban is awful. What's happening is awful, but it's so easy to manipulate people and all that. So I think the left is just has a extremely unrealistic view of the people and humanity at this point. And I thought maybe you have some pushback on this.
No, I mean, I don't think I really have a pushback there, and I don't know, I think kind of goes to the initial part, and I don't want to say that, like in the West there's like perfect democracy and all this, but for instance, does this example kind of complement actually what you were saying? So with the Egyptian revolution, right, I was blown away at how quickly, as soon as the former government was put down, how quickly they wanted to have the election. I was like, how is it possible that you're like rushing to an election right now? Shouldn't there be like just someone for 3 to 4 years, non-democratic or whatever, take care of like the country a little bit, and then let's say in 4 years, 5 years, you plan an election? If there have never been political parties who were allowed to, debate and thrive at least a little bit, how can you quickly after a revolution have an election? And of course, the Egyptian military was great for them because, they knew there will be only the Muslim Brotherhood, nobody else will become strong, so then they can perhaps deal with them. So I don't even know if you agree with the narrative, the way I put it, but I feel like that's like the same. They kind of just rush it. And of course, rushing to the next step is beneficial for some people. But yeah, from the get-go, I was like, how? You just said that there was Mubarak in charge all the time. How could there possibly be an election that's good this quickly, or even relatively okay?
No, even that's the thing. There is a major central contradiction, I think, in the thoughts of people who are leftist and also democratically minded and believe local democracy or more power to the people works. And the major contradiction is reality that they don't seem to acknowledge. That, as you said, let's say the election that followed Mubarak was a perfect election in terms of like the handling of the election. What you had in Egypt or what you had in Iran or what you had in US or a lot of places is a system of repression which included a lot of bad things, and one of them was the very bad education system that would have tried to, as we say, probably they wouldn't agree, but brainwash people into believing like the dictator is the good guy, the cult of the personality of the dictator, or the specific ideology, right? And then left accepts that yes, these institutions should be fixed, these institutions are bad, these institutions are brainwashing people, fooling people. But then same people come up to you and say, those people who are fooled, those people who I said went through these institutions that sadly gives them a distorted view, whatever that means afterwards, I think those people should decide. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's like, that doesn't make sense. Like, those people will make the wrong decision because they came up in the system. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a snake, it's in its own tail in a way. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Of course, if you go to a temple where children back in the days, like in monks, like children were forced to go to a temple, and they don't know anything else outside of temple, and ask them, okay guys, what kind of lifestyle you want to choose, they're going to probably vote again for that temple life. But that doesn't mean that's the right decision to do, so
I mean, if I would differ with you here a little bit, and I would say, let's say a lot of people do know differently and they do think differently. So in Egypt, a lot of people wanted to get rid of Mubarak and have something else. There just wouldn't be like the planning and the organization and all of this in place for something better to come up. Otherwise, it just gets hijacked by those who are more powerful and in place already.
No, but that's exactly my point, that they wanted Mubarak out, but they didn't know what they wanted instead.
Yeah. Which makes sense. I mean, you need to take your time and
makes sense.
Figure things out.
It makes sense. But then the leftist leaders, the good guys or whatever, the nice guys, or
I mean, I wouldn't call those leftists, though. That's one place I would disagree with you. That's like the liberals kind of, the centrist, yeah.
No, but socialists. But even Noam Chomsky, man, all these people say that you should go towards the more local power, distribute power to the people and all that. And have you seen the people? Most of the people are not most of the people, if put in the position of Biden, would do worse than him, in my experience. This idea that most people are actually good, or not that they're bad or good or anything. It's just most people are we're disappointing. We do the easy thing, and we get manipulated very easily by forces.
For dealing with day-to-day stuff. I mean, yes, you want democracy and everything, but leaders, I mean, politicians, all this, and you need to have expertise. Yeah, you need to have some expertise and skills and all that.
So I don't understand when it comes to future of a country. No, we should have a vote, because I see that on Afghanistan right now. Really? The Taliban is not legitimate. There should be an election very soon held.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay,
I wouldn't do
forget
that
forget about running water, forget about security, forget about electricity. Election.
I mean, I don't know who do you think would win in that situation, even if they had that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if. I mean, I mean, who would come on top? I mean, I don't know the consensus, but of course, in some areas.
But by the way, I do hope I'm wrong about this, though, and I do hope one day somebody convinces me that I'm wrong. I do hope, this is not like something I'm happy to think. It's just something that when I like it's a conclusion I come to. It's not I want to think that. I wish every one of us could change the world through our vote. Who doesn't want that? But
Yeah, no, I
sorry,
think there's some
got really
no, I think
serious.
there's some time and there's some time
Yeah,
and
got
space for
really
it. I just find that it's usually like whenever you rush right after, like literally right after a revolution or whatever, it's because you're acting in a bad faith manner, and you know that that is the best way to go about it if you have a chance. But I mean, if I was like on the side of the former government in Afghanistan, I really don't know. I really don't know much, and as people can tell, I haven't spoken much because I don't know that much, nowhere even near Sam. But I wouldn't be surprised if like the Taliban or like parts of Taliban or related Taliban associate governments, they come on top if there was some kind of like election that would help. So,
yeah.
so I don't think that's a good idea.
And if they don't win, they just do a Al-Sisi style coup d'etat.
Yeah,
it's over.
Yeah, I'm not even saying that people don't know and stuff. You just need to like chill a bit, I guess, like, form some political organizations. Maybe some things happen at a smaller level or something, and then maybe, and exactly, you can deal with bigger stuff like water. I guess there's no disagreement, or infrastructure. There's no disagreement, right? Everybody would agree, sure, go provide water and spend some money.
They have far more money and far better organizational skill than, like, I mean, the right wing and hardcore, like, racist, religious bigots, all that. They have far more money and organizations than we ever have. Like, first of all, it's hopeless. But if you do want to take them down, your best hope is to like infiltrate them, and then like at the last moment, just they win. They'll win.
It seems so for now.
Yeah. Sorry, it's very. Let's end on the saddest note possible, guys. We are all gonna be destroyed by the bigotry of others. But yeah.
No,
but
yeah.
you have to. Did you anything on Afghanistan stood out on the coverage these days for you? Or?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, the only thing I still get blown away by is like whenever people still say that like if the Americans stayed longer, it could have been X, Y, or Z, or those that say that they completely say like, oh, could have done differently, and now we should have had this plan. Where I mean, there was 20 years. Why would anybody believe that a different plan or approach would work? I mean, that's one that really baffles me. But that's been baffling me for 3 months, so it's nothing new. That's why I haven't said it. That was the narrative from the get-go.
Look, I mean, it just shows how much of a politician, I suppose, they are. They could have let people know earlier and had them evacuate, but that would have meant admitting defeat, and that would have meant 3 months of bad publicity. Now they just have 1 week of bad publicity, and nobody really cares about foreign policy. So
yeah. Oh, I mean, if I have one take, is, let me see actually what you think about this. People think that this would be awful for the Biden administration. I really don't think so. One reason being is that we're so early into his administration. Even if it was like a bigger fuck up, there is still so much time. There's still 3 years to go. So that's one part I don't see at all. I think Biden will recover unless things change.
If he stayed, if he left, if he didn't do anything, none of it would have mattered. Foreign policy does not matter at all.
Yeah, and
especially in American elections, where most people don't even know what is a foreign country.
I mean, in the last election especially, didn't matter. Maybe in the ones a little bit before.
It has never. Did George Bush lost?
Well, it depends, but yeah.
Not
significantly enough. Yeah.
No, George Bush didn't lose.
I know he didn't lose, but I mean, even if you talk about like popular vote and not getting a lot of vote, but yeah.
All right. Oh, the first time around, no, but the second time around, especially after he started the war, he won the popular vote as well. Like people care about money. That's pretty much like, as long as you keep your people well fed, they vote for you. They don't.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I'm very suspicious of. But yeah, anything else? But this video can easily be chopped into different sections. So I'm really glad that you stuck
Hopefully
to
it
the
will be.
notes that you that you shared. This Progressive World episode, I'm scared that the computer is gonna have issues rendering this because it's gonna be like a 10 gigabyte 4 hour
6 hours.
segment.
Yes,
But it was
sorry.
good stuff.
The thing was, I thought there was so much good stuff on Taliban and Afghanistani takeover and all that, and I just thought to give a comprehensive something
No,
that
no, it's
is
brilliant.
maybe slightly different. But yeah, hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Hope it renders. Don't want to do this again.
No. But once we actually did a video that was super long and it wasn't doing it, so I just cut it in half, rendered them separately, and put it together. So, I have techniques.
Thank God
don't worry.
for technology.
No, don't worry, it won't go to waste. That's for sure.
Like editing is magic, right?
More or less. But okay, we started off with me bullshitting Briahna Kasparian, and we ended on a more serious, much more serious and substantial.
Yeah, this is a bonus thing.
Yeah.
We are not going to do this every.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Okay, if nothing else to say, really good stuff, folks. Please leave your comments, questions, criticisms. I feel like criticisms won't be about Afghanistan, but maybe like the stuff we were saying earlier on. No, I was saying the stuff we were saying earlier on about like the whole race and everything in the US or things like that I can see perhaps some criticisms popping up. But if not, comments, questions.
We're gonna chop them up. Try to, like, if you're gonna do do the comments on a small video about that thing. So it's easier that way too. What is he talking about?
But okay, folks, please like and subscribe, and we'll be back with a lot more videos in these coming weeks and months as my little hiatus during the summer messed things up. But okay, now we're back. So thank you, everyone. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video. Thank you.